What's the goal? The goal is to win a World Series, as far as I remember. and if that's not the goal, and I agree with you, if it's about gates and if it's about keeping people in the ballpark, because you're a game and a half out of the wild card, then I'm not telling them how to run their business, but I think you have to be adult about it and honest with yourselves and go, this is another opportunity to get younger and hopefully get better and scout other teams and other team systems and see what you can get for some of these guys, because the way this team's constructed right now, it's not good enough to win.
That was Joe Buck earlier today on with TMA alongside Alex Ferrario and Grant Francis on Brandon Kiley. Alex, as he was saying that on the morning after, I saw John Scores, I believe it was, over in their chat who said, bet you we're going to hear this on BK and Ferrario later today.
How did you know?
First of all, how dare you? And second of all, you're correct. You are absolutely going to hear that later on today.
Not only hear it, it's the open.
100%. Hey, what else are we going to talk about? You want to talk about Shane Gillis? Because that was the biggest sports news from last night.
I laughed a couple of times, specifically on the Bill Belichick with his girlfriend. It was very funny.
He's just not my type.
I get it.
I respect anybody. Comedy's not for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own style, whatever. It's not for me, so it didn't do a whole lot for me. I was honestly shocked by the selection for the ESPYs, but hey, look, God bless him.
We can all laugh at the fact that Bill Belichick reads bookies to his girlfriend at night. We can all respect that.
That was a good one.
We all can laugh at that one.
All right, so the Cardinals are 51-46 right now. They're 6.5 games back in the division. That ain't great. However, in the wild card standings, they're just a game and a half back of the San Diego Padres right now, Alex. I agree with Joe Buck. This team sure as hell ain't winning the World Series. There's no doubt about that. Like, if we use that as our starting point, I think everybody in St. Louis agrees the 2025 Cardinals, as currently constructed, and frankly, as they will be constructed on August 1st post-deadline, almost zero chance of getting to or winning the World Series. That's where the conversation begins, and that, to me, is where it gets interesting. Should that be the North Star for 2025? Because I maintain that there is value in getting to the playoffs. I think for this team, much like for the St. Louis Blues, and I would argue this for City or any other professional sports team that there is, I think there is value in getting in. I also think, given where they're at in their life cycle as an organization, there's more value in that today than there was in, say, like 2016. Where, yeah, at that point in time, coming off of this crazy run from, starting in basically 2000 all the way up until 2015-ish, where you as an organization are striving for the World Series every single season, and anything short of that is a disappointment. Well, now we are in a place that's a little different to me, and I think it's okay to change your mindset in any given season. So to me, this season is about the runway opportunity, and then, hey, as we get in a little longer, if we're good enough, let's start to look toward getting into the playoffs and having that be the next step for us as an organization. And the next year, maybe you take another step from that. And then maybe by 2027, we're talking about getting back to those World Series aspirations. Alex, that to me is really where I diverge with Joe Buck. And hey, Joe Buck certainly knows his thing or two about the history of this organization, certainly more than I do. But to me, this season, things are a little bit different. They have changed. The North Star for the team has gone down a little bit. How do you view that and what it means for the Cardinals as their decisions loom in the next 10 to 15 days?
Yeah, look, the North Star for the Cardinals is all about runway and setting your team up for future success. That's what the North Star was at the beginning of the season. It's what it should be at the end of the season, which means you need to approach this trade deadline differently than years past. I don't think it's just a matter of sell, sell, sell. To me, that's a team that's just North Star is to get the best pick available in the draft. And that's not where the Cardinals are at. I think the North Star has always been the runway, and the best way to get answers for these guys that we've been doing our analysis with, BK, in the middle of the season to get runway answers on, the best way to get those answers if you're the Cardinals is to be in a competitive division or a competitive playoff race in the final months of the season, because that's how you really get answers. Are these guys a part of a team that can compete, or are they not? Do they look like a shell of themselves when you get towards the playoffs? But the other North Star should be setting this team up for future success, which means at this trade deadline, if you're 2.5 games out of a wild card spot, or even if you're 1 game out of a wild card spot, I still think you have to proceed with caution at that trade deadline of, hey, is somebody willing to give us their fourth best prospect for Ryan Helsley? This isn't just a matter of playoffs. That's what's guiding our direction. The direction has always been get answers on these players, which I agree, playoffs matter for that. Just like the playoffs mattered for the Blues. You need to find out, can Thomas get you to the playoffs? Can Kyrie get you to the playoffs? Can Parayko do it?
And can they succeed when they get there? I think that's a part of this conversation
because
as well.
That's how you get answers on runway. If Mason Wynn goes off in the second half or Alec Burleson goes off in the second half and you make the playoffs, cool, man. I found cornerstones for my team.
Sure.
So that's a part of these answers. But I do also believe that the North Star is setting your team up for future success once Chaim Bloom takes over, which might mean having to sell Ryan Helsley if you're a game and a half out of a wild card spot, if the return makes your team better for near future years.
And maybe, but also if you do that, like I just think it's sending a terrible message to that locker room, first of all. I don't think that this team without Ryan Helsley, and I know he hasn't been perfect this season, but he still helps. I don't think that this team without him makes it to the playoffs. I think you're eliminating a piece that is too large, too significant for them to be able to overcome. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line, by the way, to get involved in the show. Starvin Marvin says, I still like the idea of buying and selling. Sell Helsley, move out a starter, add a cheaper bat that can hit against lefties. I'm in favor of trading Eric Fedde at the deadline no matter what. I'm in favor of adding that right-handed bat that hits against lefties. I've used Harrison Bader as my placeholder there. You could use another name, that's fine. But a cheap outfielder, right-handed hitter that hits against lefties, I think that would help this team. I am opposed to selling Helsley, barring this team going through some sort of a horrific start to the second half of the season, which is possible, by the way. I want to keep that open. Like my answer on this could be different 10 days from now. They've got what I think will be a difficult series coming up against the Arizona Diamondbacks to start out the second half. They've got a 4-game series against San Diego coming up here very soon. Right before the deadline, people are going to laugh at this, but they have a 3-game set against the Miami Marlins, who are actually playing some really inspired baseball lately. So it's not just, hey, get into the second half, you're going to roll over a bunch of teams and it's going to be great. It could go south, and if it does, you trade Helsley. I'm not saying that at all. Like, different information will change my view on this, but as of today, they're a game and a half back. I don't think you should sell him. And this gets back to something else on the text line, Alex, from TubeSuck.
Oh, okay. That's a name.
The playoffs have value if you have a young core like the Blues. The Cardinals are still looking for that core. I just don't agree with that. I don't. I think that part of your core moving forward is here. I think Ivan Herrera is going to be a part of the core. I don't know where he plays, but I think he's part of your core moving forward. I think that you have seen Brendan Donovan develop into a key piece that will be a part of your team moving forward. I believe Alec Burleson has a real chance to be a part of that moving forward. I think we have already seen Mason Wynn become a big part of that moving forward. I think Andre Palante is part of it. Matthew Liberatore is a part of it. I think you've seen some guys develop in the bullpen that will be a part of it. I would say 8 to 12 players currently on the roster will probably still be here in 2027 when you are really, hopefully at least, contending for something meaningful. That's a pretty significant amount of your roster, man. So I would just disagree with that notion. That's probably part of why I have this fork in the road moment with so many, I would say, fans, media alike. I guess I just view this team a little bit differently. I don't think they are 100 years away from contending and everything on the team is crap. I think they've got some pretty good players. They're just missing key components that championship contenders have.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got 6 position players on their team right now that I would label core pieces of their team. And I mean, 6 position players that are starters compared to the 9 starting lineup. That's more than half. So that's what you want. Add in the 2 starting pitchers of Liberatore and Palante and McGreevy, if you believe he's going to be a part of this rotation. That's 3/5 of your rotation that's a part of your core. People don't like to hear this because I think they love the Blues and they hate the Cardinals right now.
Dude, from your lips to God's ears.
They're in identical situations in terms of, yeah, they've got the core that you want to find out. There's still pieces on the core like Walker and Nootbaar and Nolan Gorman that you look at and you say, are you really a part of this core? I could say the same thing about a couple of pieces for the Blues this past season in terms of Kyrou. I guess you said the thing about Bolduc. You said the thing about your third line, a couple of guys really with Texier or Joseph or Sundqvist. You always have people that aren't a part of the core, but the guys you really want answers on, they're already established. You kind of need that to get to the point.
Yeah, I would say the difference, I don't really know how else to say it. You're missing the superstar.
Yeah.
You're missing the guy that can carry your lineup. And how do you get that guy? I truly do not know.
It's not by trading Housley if that's what you're hoping for.
No. And like, it's obviously not coming via this year's draft. The number 5 overall selection maybe could have been that, but he's more likely to become the number 1 or number 2 starter, which you also lack, by the way. I'm not trying to sell you that. That's the other thing that you're missing. You're missing the hardest piece to get on the pitching side of things and on the hitting side of things. I don't know how you get it because they clearly are unwilling to pay for that guy. Maybe you could trade for that player. I don't think there's anybody that's going to become that, including J.J. Weatherholt, currently in your system. So, yes, they are lacking key pieces that could be a part of a championship roster. But I just have to look at the roster as is, see kind of where that guy would fit in. Your current roster has a lot of the stuff that you need to win.
Yeah.
It's just missing like 1 or 2 spots, both on the pitching side of things and on the position player side. But what you have now, position player-wise, is mostly what it's going to be whenever this team gets good again, or at least the hope should be that. And that's why you need to root for Victor Scott to be good. You need to root for Mason Wynn to be good. You need to root for Brendan Donovan to be here long-term, Alec Burleson for this to be what he is long-term. Because if all of those things are true and Herrera becomes this hitter that can be a middle-of-the-order bat, stuff starts to fit into place a little bit easier, and now you can go find that big-time position player that pushes everything else down one peg, similar to what the Cubs did this offseason with their Kyle Tucker move.
Yeah, and the acquisition of that player might be a younger player. I brought up to you yesterday in the office Kyle Stowers and being like, man, go get that guy. And, of course, he was traded at the deadline from Baltimore to Miami. I don't know if I don't know if Ryan Helsley gets you that right now. Like, typically when you acquire that bat, it's an offseason move. And it remains to be seen if the Cardinals can do that. People aren't going to like this. You might have to just be patient on the pitching side of things because you might be really setting yourself up in a couple of years to have a really scary good rotation. But the hitter is where you're at. And unfortunately, making or missing the playoffs isn't going to give you the answer to that. We already know the answer to that. The question is going to be, can you acquire that player? And that's going to be a Chaim Bloom task more than a John Mozeliak task.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 618. Just want to read this real quick. How can you guys say they need a superstar if you've turned down every idea that we have said that they needed to after? Devers, it's one, Acuna, another, etc. I said I don't think Devers makes sense for this team as currently constructed. You have Wilson Contreras at first. You have Ivan Herrera right now at DH at least. Devers doesn't fit with the current roster construction. I wish that was different, but it's just not for this team. Acuna, I'd be all in on.
Yeah, the only one that wasn't in on Acuna was T-Bone when we did that trade proposal. Look, if the Cardinals can make Ivan Herrera an outfielder, they could probably make Rafael Devers an outfielder. They should have tried it.
I don't think so.
They should have tried it.
He has no athleticism whatsoever. He's a DH also, or first base type exclusive.
The dude's hitting 202 with only 2 home runs in 25 games for the Giants. So I think people would be a little upset if the Devers trade happened.
Devers has some value, and I think he's going to be a really good hitter for the San Francisco Giants down the road. Just not the deal that I personally would have been seeking out. I think there are other routes that the Cardinals could go that potentially gets that kind of a player for them that fits with their roster a little bit better. Alongside Alex and Grant Francis, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, I really wanted to play to the audience today, so we're going to get Keith Law on the show. He's an MLB prospects writer for The Athletic. He really does great work, and he's about as good as it gets when it comes to breaking down the draft. Tomorrow, we'll be joined by Randy Flores, the Cardinals assistant general manager. He is in charge of overseeing the draft, so he'll give us some insight into some of their decisions tomorrow at 11:30. But next, I do want to talk a little bit, Alex, because before the show today, we talked about the differences between the Blues and the Cardinals and why there is so much negativity surrounding the Cardinals, so much positivity surrounding the Blues. I think we came to one specific area that might be leading to some of that negativity, and we'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and Grant Francis, I'm Brandon Kiley. We've got Keith Law coming up here in about 15 minutes. You can check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN STL if you'd like to watch that conversation. Keith will join us on the YouTube stream. I did want to talk a little bit about the differences between the Blues and the Cardinals, or maybe the similarities between the two and where they're at right now in their respective retool, rebuild, whatever. Now they don't want to use the reword on the Blue side of things, and I think the Cardinals are getting closer to that area. We got this from the 314. Guys, I think the main culprit in the negativity around the Cardinals is that Army has been aggressive and reduced the time of the rebuild by doing so. Mo and company, meanwhile, have been conservative and, by appearance, prolonged the best case maintained the pace of that said rebuild. I think there's some truth to that. I also think some of that is due to the way that the two sports are operating, right? In the NHL, there are certain things that Doug Armstrong is able to do because of the CBA, because of the way that the sport operates in the offseason, that baseball just doesn't have the opportunity to do. Baseball doesn't have restricted free agency. When you go to arbitration in baseball, you are still, for lack of a better term, your team's property. Like, they're not property, they're players, but you are an asset for your respective club, right? Nobody else can come in while Brendan Donovan is going into arbitration and say, hey, we'd like to offer sheet this guy and sign him to a long-term contract. It's not part of the construct of the sport. It's more similar to, like, I guess a franchise tag in the NFL, right? That's probably the closest thing to it. So he didn't have the opportunity to go John Mozeliak and sign a Dylan Holloway or sign a Philip Broberg. And so I think that's part of this. The other part, Alex, is there's not a cap in Major League Baseball. And I think sometimes this can work against ownership groups and against general managers. Because your fans, and I think this is fair to a degree, can look at it and say, hey, our team should be spending more. Because look at X, Y, or Z, right? Look at the Dodgers, look at the Mets, look at the Phillies. Hell, look at the San Diego Padres and look what they're spending. How come we can't spend like them? Whereas in the NHL, every team has the same amount of cash to spend on any given season. You get up to this amount, and it is up to your ownership group. Are you willing to spend to that amount or not? But there's also a floor that you have to spend above. So I think that is actually working against the DeWitts right now, and I'm not caping for them. Like, I think they should have spent more money this year. I also think what they're doing is right on the youth movement and stuff, but there have been times in the past where I think it is totally fair to be critical of their spending, but I think the lack of a cap is part of this conversation. How much do you think that influences the way that fans view the two respective teams right now?
I think if you were to slice it as a pie, 50% of it would be because of that cap. I think the cap floor and the cap ceiling really exposes certain teams as to what they're doing. Like, for the longest time, you could look at Arizona, now Utah, and say, cool, they're just tanking to be bad. The same can be said about what Edmonton was doing for the longest time, tanking to get their superstar. Whereas sometimes you got teams that, like the Pirates, that are very evidently just always tanking. But you get those teams in the middle that don't want to spend for the top tier free agents. They're fine doing the middle ones, but if they don't spend anything, they're fine with it. Like, it just feels like the cap has always been a opportunity to showcase the ones that are always being aggressive and the ones that don't want to do anything. And I think the Cardinals fall right in between there. It's why people have begun so frustrated for the Cardinals for the longest time, right? Because it was just get in the playoffs and anything can happen. You're fine being right in the middle. My initial thought, though, as to why people have such a negative view has always been the honesty. And some of the honesty does come down to the lack of cap, because there's only so many things you can do when the cap is out there. But I think the Cardinals got a little bit better with it this season. Doug Armstrong has been good with it, I think, pretty much his entire time with the Blues in terms of being upfront, full exposure of what the team looks at they're doing. Even if he pulls something off that's not in the news, he's always telling you what direction the team is going in, and the moves back it up. And I don't believe the Cardinals do that. A perfect example is recently with Eric Fetty, of how he makes that start before the All-Star break. Like, they're making it seem like they're trying to be competitive and give the runway to stars, but yet they don't bring up Michael McGreevy for that start, and they keep Eric Fetty there. Like, it just always feels like part of that blame pie for the front office of why people get so frustrated. I think a large portion of it is because of the lack of cap in baseball. But the other one is I just don't think the Cardinals are very upfront and honest with the direction that they're trying to improve this team.
I think that's true. I think that is what you're saying there. Like, I think messaging is part of it. If we're doing the blame pie thing, right? I think messaging is a part of this. I think sometimes it gets overstated on how big of a part of the pie that is. I think if they were having success and had the exact same messaging, people wouldn't care. But because they are not having that same amount of success, it's a big part of it. I would also say this, like, people bring up what they were in the early 2000s, right? And yes, things have changed in the way they operate to some degree because they were higher on the payroll rankings than they are right now. I would also add this. Like, I'm looking at the 2004, so we're looking basically exactly 20 years ago. 2004 payrolls across Major League Baseball. The New York Yankees were at $185 million for their payroll in 2004. Second in Major League Baseball was the Red Sox at $127. Again, Yankees number 1, 184. Second is the Red Sox at 127. Third in Major League Baseball, the Mets at 96. So you had these two outliers, and really just the one with the Yankees, but then the Red Sox were up there as well. And then most of the rest of the top 10 were somewhere in the 85 to 95 range. They were all kind of relatively similar in what they were spending. And this is something else that has gotten completely out of whack with Major League Baseball. Now you look at it today. I'm going to read you some of the top payrolls in the sport, all right? The LA Dodgers are $340 million this year.
Jeez.
The New York Mets are second at $330. Then the Yankees at $290. Then you've got the Phillies at $280. And at fifth on this list this year, 2025, is the Toronto Blue Jays, believe it or not, at $250 million. These teams are so far and away beyond what the middle of the pack teams are spending. So as an example of this, I'll go to the 10th ranked payroll in Major League Baseball this year. It's the LA Angels at $208 million. So the gap between, let's call it third, which is basically the breakaway from the previous version that I was talking about, the third highest payroll of $290 million, and where the Cardinals used to be, like that 8 to 10 range, is $80 million.
Jeez.
That was what the Cardinals were spending, is $80 million. The gap now between 10th and third is the same amount of money as the Cardinals were spending on their entire payroll in 2004. Baseball's landscape financially has shifted in such a way that it is nearly impossible for these teams that are in the middle markets to keep up, to maintain. And I think that puts all of these teams, ownership, GMs especially, in such a horrific position of, I've got to sell this to my fan base on, this is why it's going to work this time around. And more often than not, they're going to be wrong. Because while it's not like, hey, every year the Dodgers are going to play against the Yankees in the World Series. No, I don't believe that, because playoffs are a crapshoot. Those teams are getting there, though. They're getting there almost every single season because that payroll does eventually matter. It allows you to mask over your problems. Mm-hmm. So I know that the salary cap is this dirty word among the players, and I think that they are honestly dead-ass wrong about that. I think there are some benefits that could come along from this. The owners are also in the wrong because they're not going to open their books. They're not going to show you all of the revenues that are coming in, which make this all impossible. But baseball's got a lockout coming, and I think it's going to be horrible at the time, and it's going to be bad for the game, and I wish they could get this done ahead of time. But I do think some of what they're trying to accomplish there could ultimately be good for everybody involved, because the way they're going right now, this is not sustainable, man. Especially for markets such as St. Louis that want to be a part of the game in a way that they used to be. They can't be that anymore, and it's terrible for fans.
Yeah, real quick, because we got to get to Keith Law on the other side. Part of the mixed messaging, too, though, was like at the beginning of the season when the Cardinals talked about how they want to get back to what they used to do, their roots of drafting and developing. I mean, look at those rosters in the 2000s. That wasn't drafting and developing. That was acquiring stars and making them even bigger stars with their team. But Grant brought up a really good point in the office earlier. You know, look at the salary cap impact. The Blues don't sign Pius Suter if there's no salary cap in the NHL. Like, the Blues have had a lot of success in terms of the salary cap. There's teams that are always willing to spend a buku a lot of money because they don't They have the ability to, but there's limitations. Pius Suter signs because he wants to be in St. Louis, but also they've got money to do that. If there was no cap, you'd see teams like the Rangers throwing a ton of money at them. Sometimes
what the Rangers or what the Red Wings used to be.
Yeah, sometimes teams benefit from that salary cap, and I do think Doug Armstrong has found ways to maneuver inside the salary cap that makes him look so good.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals would be a team that would be able to maneuver within that salary cap pretty well. Unfortunately, that's not the system that we have right now, and therefore, we can continue to old man yells at clouds. Coming up next, if there's not a salary cap, that means the Cardinals have to be pretty damn good at drafting and developing. What did they get in their number 5 overall selection this year, and what's the state of the farm system for the Cardinals today? We'll ask Keith Law, MLB prospect writer for The Athletic, when he joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
Grant Francis here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Earlier today, the Cardinals signed their number 5 overall pick, left-handed pitcher Liam Doyle, to a team record $7.25 million bonus. Cardinals will be back in action tomorrow at 8:40 as they start a 3-game set out in Arizona. I'm Grant Francis. The Sports Center update's been driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Grant Francis, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. And right now, we are happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by prospects writer for The Athletic. He is Keith Law joining us here on the show. If you want to, you can watch this interview over on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Keith, we always appreciate the time. How you doing today?
I'm exhausted. How are you guys doing?
We're doing all right. Appreciate you joining us. I have to imagine this has been a crazy last week for you. The draft, all-star festivities, all of that. So let's start with the obvious with the Cardinals. Liam Doyle, the number 5 overall selection. For us here in St. Louis, we're all very excited because he is the antithesis of everything that they have previously sought out in the draft. Big fastball, strikeout stuff. So when you saw the pick at number 5, Keith, what came to mind for you?
I think I had him as the number 2 player in the draft class. At one point, I had him number 1. I love the pick. I thought it was the best pitcher in the class overall. He's got the most upside. It's up to 100. It is unhittable. He's got a second-plus pitch in the splitter. I think he's got a good enough slider, and I think it all kind of plays up because the delivery is a little funky and hitters just don't see the ball. I happened to catch him through 6 no-hit innings against Texas A&M, so you obviously can't see a guy a whole lot better than that. I do see little things I think they can do to just kind of help him along the way. I think it's less a matter of improving him and just kind of fine-tuning. I happen to know they were ecstatic that he was still available most of the spring. They assumed he would be gone by pick 5, and so did I. I figured at worst he'd go maybe pick 2 to the Angels, who supposedly wanted a quick-to-the-majors pitcher, and he probably fit that as well as anybody. They took a different pitcher, so we were kind of half right, I guess. I could see Doyle getting there fast. I don't think the Cardinals are going to do that. I think they're going to take their time to make sure that when he does get there, he gets there to stay, and he's set up to be a successful starter for the long term.
If that's the case, Keith, because I know he's already thrown a lot of pitches for Tennessee, do you see this slow process as just continuing to maintain that starting pitcher? Or when he gets to the majors, do you see an impact of potentially being a bullpen guy first?
I wouldn't put him in the bullpen for any reason except if you think that's the right thing for his development. So, for example, if you're saying he's thrown too many innings in a year, we want to get him to the majors, but we've got to control the workload, and maybe you break him in, say, as a long reliever, which Earl Weaver was a huge advocate of, and I do think can be very good for a guy's development. What I do not want to see is bringing up Liam Doyle to be a closer or a setup man in the very short term, because I don't want to break him. Basically, that's really it. I don't think that makes sense for him, for who he is, for who he could potentially be. It's different for somebody like Arkansas's Gage Wood, who the Phillies took in the first round, who missed 6 weeks with a shoulder problem anyway. Like he's gonna break. So you might just say, bring him to the big leagues and let's get what we can out of him. Doyle is not that. Doyle, to me, is the guy you protect. You manage carefully. Don't underpitch him, but also don't expose him too much. Like putting him in a major league bullpen, which are high-stress pitches, often in tight games. Sometimes it means pitching multiple days in a row. I don't want to see any of that for him.
What's the profile look like for Doyle? You've mentioned that the fastball, splitter, this is all stuff that Cardinals fans are kind of unfamiliar with because it's been a while since we've had a legitimate, not just top pitching prospect in their system, but top pitching prospect among all of baseball. So what does this look like at the major league level if things go in the right direction, Keith?
I think I've called him a number 2 starter. I didn't think there was really a number 1 starter in this draft class, certainly not in the college ranks. And I mean a potential number 1 starter. None of these guys are going to come to the majors right away and pitch sort of at peak level. Paul Skeens is a unicorn, and I don't think there's a Paul Skeens in this draft class. But I do think if you dropped Doyle in the majors right now, he would get outs. I think the delivery, the qualities of the fastball, it's got a lot of ride up in the zone, which a lot of teams are particularly scouting for or looking for with their draft models. I do think he is going to be a number 2 starter, though, because he throws a lot of strikes. He's very aggressive. He knows guys can't hit the fastball, so he goes right after them with it. And because he has that splitter, too, splitters, and his does, tend to have really sharp downward movement, too. So it's up with the fastball, and it's down with the splitter, and a little bit down with the slider as well. So hitters are just, they can't even guess, right? They don't see it that well coming out of his hand, and it's, well, is it going to stay up because it's the fastball? Is it going to drop because it's the splitter? Maybe it's going to break because it's the slider. They all kind of look the same out of his hand. And so I expect him to be a high strikeout guy pitching towards the top of a rotation. I couldn't tell you what kind of workload he's going to take because I just, I think we don't know anymore. Other than, again, Paul Skeens, who's 260 pounds, right? That's a number 1 200-inning starter. Most of these other guys, I don't know. He's a starter. I know he's a starter. As long as he holds up, he's a starter. He's got the stuff. He has held it deep into games, and he's shown he can get guys out multiple times within the same game.
Keith, we talked about this yesterday, and as BK mentioned off of the top, this is just not the profile of somebody that the Cardinals typically select in the draft. Did you see just kind of a change of thought process in terms of this draft overall by the Cardinals compared to years past?
Well, they don't pick this high, right? This is the highest they've picked in 30 years, I think. Might even be longer than that. Last year they picked 7th. This year they picked 5th. But before that, they were typically picking in the late teens or into the 20s. Liam Doyle's are not available in those picks. So I don't know how much of it is a change in philosophy and how much of it is we're in rarefied air up here. We don't usually get to take these guys. So let's capitalize on the opportunity because hopefully we're not picking up here again in the future. They did later in the draft. I mean, they took some more, I hate to say arm strength guys because that can be a bit of a derogatory term, but they
Not
definitely
here,
opened
Keith.
it.
Not here. Fans want to hear all of that. Tell me about Tanner Franklin throwing 102. That's what Cardinals fans are craving right now.
Yeah, but it's and Franklin's a weird one. We can just jump into talking about him, right? He's up to 102. He sits in the upper 90s. He's got a plus cutter. I don't know why he hasn't been more effective or what. I think they probably just didn't try to start him because they're Tennessee and they had a lot of pitchers, they had a lot of starters, and they were trying to develop a freshman who's going to be eligible next year named Tegan Kuhns as the Sunday starter. So that may have just been Franklin just didn't really have the opportunity. I said in my write-up, I don't think it'd be crazy to try to start him. He hasn't done it, but the delivery's not as violent as you would expect for 102, and I'm sure that's probably why they took him. I don't know if they intend to try to start him or even just stretch him out at all, but I do that's a guy that the Cardinals haven't taken a lot at all. Guys who throw that hard. I mean, I like him more than Ben Joyce, who got to the majors fairly quickly for the Angels. He's the guy who threw 105, also for Tennessee. But he'd already broken. He's broken again. I think he's out this entire year. Right? This is not that. This is balancing a little bit between the premium velocity, but also a guy who doesn't have that injury track record and has at least some prognosis to be able to stay healthy long enough to have an impact.
We're talking to Keith Law here on 101 ESPN. You can read his work over at The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at Keith Law. Keith, when you look at it, this was the draft for 2025, but their system overall, the way that you look at that as well, how do the Cardinals compare to their peers across Major League Baseball right now? Are they making strides? Is it taking a step back? How do you feel about their farm system overall right now?
I think the farm system is on the way up, and the biggest difference is since Chaim Bloom came in and started bringing in some different people, particularly in player development, you're just seeing better results, right? And I would say especially on the pitching side, I think that you're starting to see and hear more good things on the pitching side than you have probably in years, right? Where for a long time, the issue with the Cardinals was more that they would bring guys in, and they would look good maybe near early going, or they'd just be promising out of the draft, and then they would stall out in Double-A or especially in Triple-A. It seemed like a lot of guys hit the Triple-A wall. That's going to continue, right? I don't think that's going to just be one and done here. I think you will see continuous improvement. I think as they continue to bring guys in who have even more talent, that they will also just have a better record of getting the most out of those guys, or at least getting enough of those guys too. I think we could look at a lot of high picks where we say they just haven't gotten enough yet out of some of them. Also, I can't say enough good things about JJ Weatherholt. He's a superstar. I just saw him again on Saturday at the Futures game. He's going to hit. He's absolutely going to hit. He's going to come up. He should come up this year. He's going to be ready. You'll figure out where to play him. I'm not even worried about that. You got to move him to second base. Fine. I don't care. Just, he needs to be in the batter's box.
You said the word, Keith, that Cardinals fans, we've talked about velo with the pitchers, and then you said superstar.
Everybody's ears.
I think all Cardinals fans were like, oh, we got one of those. That exists. It's potentially in our system now. When you say that, what do you mean J.J. Weatherholt is a superstar? What does that look like to you at the big league level?
I mean, that's a 5-win player or more. Look, if he's got to go to second base, I think he's going to be a great defender there. I've only briefly seen him play shortstop. Folks who don't remember, he was hurt a lot in college, his draft year at least, with a hamstring injury that just kind of lingered. That's gone. That's definitely in the rearview mirror. But the day I saw him, he stood at shortstop, but he wasn't really playing it. But this guy is going to hit a lot. Like, I don't talk a lot about batting average because obviously it's only a smaller part of the overall equation. But the thing is, if you see a guy who might hit 320 and do it often, and I'm pointing at J.J. Weatherholt right now, like, that's what that is, right? That is a guy who's going to hit for high averages and do other things. He hits the ball hard enough that there's going to be some power. It may not be 25 homer power, but maybe it's 12 to 15, maybe a little bit more. I might be underselling him, actually, because the swing is just so good. He's going to get on base. He's going to play, I think, at second base. He's going to play really good defense. This is going to add up to the impact player, the guy you want to sign to the 10-year deal, the guy you're building a lineup around, and, frankly, the guy they've been looking for, right? We thought Jordan Walker might be that kind of player. Maybe he still will have his moment, but it certainly hasn't happened yet. Weatherholt, to me, is that kind of franchise-type player, and they did a great job there, too. Both he and Doyle were guys who should have gone higher on merit. And for other reasons, in Weatherholt's case, I think it was the injury and people worried it was going to continue. With Doyle, people can't get comfortable with the delivery. I can be pretty hard on deliveries too, but I thought his was fine. And the Cardinals just capitalized. Fine, we'll take that risk because the underlying traits are so promising that we can see huge upside.
So for the longest time, Keith, Cardinals fans have just been frustrated because the Cardinals have just been delaying this retool, this rebuild, whatever they've been in, and they say they can't find the stars. Does it feel like that this could be the turning point for the organization in terms of finding guys that are impact pillars for a team that could start to pull them back into the contention window?
Yes. I think they are getting there at some point. Obviously, they're going to have to spend some more money and go outside the organization, but I really like the direction that they're going in. It doesn't take that many stars. Obviously, the more the better, but you need a couple. I like the direction that they're trending in, because what I think the Cardinals have done really well is build a roster of complementary players who are good. You need those guys, but you need a couple of stars also. And I think they've got two of them potentially in Weatherholt and Doyle, and I can see glimmers elsewhere in the system. But also they could try to trade, right? They have a really old rotation in the big leagues right now. Could they trade one of them and maybe get another potential star for somewhere in their system? I mean, I think it's potentially worth trying. I know probably a lot of fans are saying we're having a good season, we don't necessarily want to start dumping players, but to me, you're in a tough spot in the division, two teams well ahead of you, two teams that are probably better equipped to get to the playoffs. Maybe the Cardinals wait and see what happens over the next week, but I would be very inclined to try to trade some of the veteran starters who they're just not going to be around the next time this team is good, to try to get some more young talent into the system.
And Keith, I think the real decision point, and we'll get you out of here on this, for them is going to be Ryan Helsley. We've gone back and forth on this show. I'm personally in the camp of, like, unless you get this crazy offer, I personally would not trade him at this year's deadline, because I think there is some value in a young team, young position player wise, at least getting to the playoffs and hopefully just continuing to have that as your North Star. But I know there's the other side of this, and I understand it. If you were in Mo's shoes and you're canvassing the league, is that something that you think they should do? And maybe as a secondary piece of that, what do you think the value is for a guy like Ryan Helsley around the league right now if he was traded at this year's deadline?
That might be the first guy I'd trade, honestly. What's he going to throw for you? 20 more innings the rest of the year? Maybe? If everything goes well, if he doesn't get hurt. I'm not saying I think he will get hurt necessarily, but they do, right? They're relievers. He missed a lot of time 2 years ago. Guys who throw that hard are kind of unpredictable. And he's a free agent after the season. So are the Cardinals really going to re-up him and give him what I expect would be 3 or even 4 years potentially? It's what those elite relievers get. I wouldn't pay them that, but that's kind of what he's looking at. Now, I absolutely think you try to flip him for Relievers like that, it's one or two prospects. I mean, it could be more, but one or two prospects of note, of merit somewhere. And I would be very comfortable if they went out there and said the single best prospect we get in return gets the player. And I mean, he's probably going to be the best closer available, I would say, at the trade market. A lot of the teams that are sellers don't have a lot of elite relievers to trade. Those two things tend to go together, right? You have a bad bullpen, you tend to have a bad record. So they might be able to hold the market hostage a little bit to try to up the price, and they should take it right to the wire and get the best offer you possibly can. I mean, obviously you want to do that all the time, but if you realize you have something that almost nobody else does and that is always highly coveted, you should demand an overpayment, essentially. And this could be an opportunity to, even if they got one more of those high-end prospects, one guy who's sort of a consensus top 100 prospect in the sport, I would be very happy with that for essentially a 2-month rental of a reliever.
He's Keith Law. Find his work over at The Athletic. He broke down the NL Central, the draft hauls for every team in this division. Did that for every team in Major League Baseball. But if you want to see what he thought about the Cardinals' other prospects that we didn't discuss here, you can read all about that over at The Athletic. Keith, it's always great to catch up, man. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. Enjoy hopefully a little bit of downtime here before we get back to the grind of the Major League Baseball season.
Yep, my pleasure.
Thanks, Keith.
That's Keith Law joining us here on BK and Ferrario. Sincerely appreciate him hopping on with us here today. As I would imagine, Alex, there has been a lot of response to that interview. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. He called one of your players, your prospects, a superstar. We'll give you our thoughts on that. Want to hear from you as well. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers coming up next here on BK and Ferrario.
questions, BK and Ferrario may have the answers. Questions and answers presented by Vantage Credit Union. As a local financial partner, Vantage puts your needs first. Membership eligibility required.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. We just had a really good interview, I thought, at least, with Keith Law. I know he has, some history here in St. Louis, but I think Keith Law is really good at his job, and I love getting his insight into not only the draft, but prospects overall, and then just the direction of teams. He's been in a front office before, so he has an understanding on all of that stuff. Alex, he mentioned with J.J. Weatherholt, and we've had a number of questions on the text line, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line on J.J. Weatherholt. Did his statement about J.J. change at all our conversation that we've had in the past about Brendan Donovan and his future here with St. Louis? How did... If he's right on JJ, he's a potential superstar for the Cardinals. What does that mean?
I mean, to me, that means he's my second baseman and Brendan Donovan's moving to one of my corner outfield spots and Lars Nootbaar's trade bait. Like, that's what I heard when he was talking. J.J. Weatherholt was like, okay, well, if this guy's a superstar and you believe he's playing second base, my priority, of course, is to see if I can move off of Nolan Arenado. Although I don't know if Weatherholt can play third base, but maybe Donovan could play third base. But regardless, to me, if that's the superstar that they're talking about, you've got Mason Wynn, who looks like he's a core piece of the team. You've got Herrera's bat. You've got Burleson's bat. And I'm still keeping Brendan Donovan if he's not going to cost me as much. To me, that's the starting works of a lineup that could be very dangerous for you. So, yeah, I mean, in my opinion, Weatherholt, welcome to second base. Donovan, you are our left fielder of the future because your profile, along with J.J. Weatherholt, makes us dangerous.
He mentioned Weatherholt's a superstar, 5-win player, potential 300 hitter multiple times in his career. For those that have not seen, in his minor league season, he has walked more than he has struck out. He hit 300 in his time at Springfield in 3 games so far at Memphis. He is 4 for 11.
He's got a home run, a double, and a triple.
He's done that in, again, 3 games with Memphis. It's ridiculous. What he's doing right now in the minors is absolutely ridiculous. It's been highly, highly impressive.
I didn't ask Keith Law about the comp because I know he hates comps. But the first guy that I thought of when he started explaining a 5-win player, he's got power, he's got the ability to hit 300, I thought Trey Turner. It's the first guy I thought of. Now, take out the speed factor because I don't think Weatherholt's that. I don't know defensively where he's going to play. He can be a shortstop for you, but I don't think he's the same as Turner. But offensive profile yeah. I heard Trey Turner. And if you look at it, Turner averages 20 to 25 home runs, 80 to 85 RBI, but he's a 5-win player, and he hits 300. I mean, I'll take a Trey Turner on this team any day of the week. Heck, I was willing to give him an 11-year deal when he was a free agent.
You mentioned, take out the steals, because I think that is a sizable difference between the two. Turner was a consistent 40 stolen base guy, and I don't think that's in his future. Somebody mentions Ian Kinsler. Ian Kinsler was a really good baseball player. That's an interesting comparison as well. But, yeah, just a very good overall hitter. Kinsler was a guy that for his career was a 270 hitter. And he was a consistent 15 to 20-ish home run guy, 20-ish stolen bases per season. I kind of like the Kinsler comparison because I think when you say a true superstar like Trey Turner, sometimes it can almost throw some of the expectations a little bit out of whack.
For sure.
But yeah, Kinsler feels like it's kind of in that range that I would be talking about. Maybe a little better than that, but Kinsler, I like the name of a comparison for JJ.
Somebody brought up on the text line who you brought up, Jose Altuve, early in his career with Houston.
Crazy home run numbers that he started putting up. Somebody else from the text line asks, guys, with what Keith Law had to say, did it change your opinion at all about Ryan Helsley and the Cardinals trading him at the deadline? I totally understand the reason that you would trade Ryan Helsley. And if they do so, I will get it. It will frustrate me if they're in the same position that they're in today at the deadline and they decide to deal him. But that would indicate to me the Cardinals are taking the Joe Buck approach, which is this team's not winning the World Series. There's no reason for us to pretend as if it is. Let's be honest with our fans. Let's tell them at the deadline, we're not winning the World Series this year, and we are doing this in order for us to better be prepared to do so in 26 or 27. That's basically what a Ryan Helsley trade would tell me. So I would understand it, but no, for me, I would still say I would hold on to Ryan Helsley this year at the deadline.
Yeah, I would trade him. If I can get, and I don't want quantity, I want quality. I want your best player that you're willing to give up. Like Keith said, go to the teams and say, give me your best player you're willing to part with. And if it falls in line of the trajectory of the Cardinals to where next year you can see him helping your team, yeah, I would pull the trigger on it.
He is Alex Ferrario. That is Grant Francis. I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, we're continuing our series of runway. Has this season been a success for the Cardinals starting pitchers that had the runway this year? Matthew Liberatore, Andre Palante, I would say those are the two that we really need to hone in on. And how far are we from seeing the Cardinals having a rotation that you really believe in with young talent? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
With Alex and Grant, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We've been going through this, Alex, for the position player side of things. We did this with the infielders. We did it with the outfielders, talking about the season of runway for the St. Louis Cardinals and whether or not it has been a success, a failure, or incomplete for individual players. So overall, we'll talk about this here in just a little bit, but I think we can give our grade on whether or not the season of runway has been a success, a failure, or incomplete for the Cardinals. But today we are going to get into the starting pitchers that fit into this criteria. I believe there are only two of them. It is Matthew Liberatore and Andre Pallante. We can have a discussion on whether or not Michael McGreevy should fit into that mix, but he hasn't thus far, including when Eric Fetty started the Saturday game.
Unfortunately, he just can't get those starts.
That's right.
Got to have Fetty out there.
No spot for him in the rotation.
Got to get answers.
Alex, let's start with Matthew Liberatore. Has the season of runway, in your opinion, been a success, a failure, or incomplete for Libby so far?
I'd call it a success. And I wanted to say an incomplete because I want to see what it looks like at the end of the season. But, man, I can't call it an incomplete when he basically has shown the ability to be a starter in a rotation for you. He started already 18 games. We've seen the cold spell of Matthew Liberatore. What was it, about 4 or 5 starts there where we
3 really bad ones in a row.
We started to ask the questions of like, okay, is he fatigued? Can he not be a starter? Is he just a bullpen? And then he came out on the other end of it, getting back to what he was at the start. Is he a number 2 or a 3 like we were originally talking? I don't think so, but maybe that's the incomplete. But if we're talking runway of are you a piece for our rotation moving forward, I'd call it a success. And there's still a lot to know with Matthew Liberatore because this is the first real full season of him being a starter. But I'd call it a success because now they know they got another rotation guy.
I like using something called fielding independent pitching. Alex, are you familiar with fielding independent pitching, otherwise known as FIP?
I understand it. Do I understand it a lot? Not so much.
Fielding independent pitching is basically, hey, if you eliminate the variables, so when the ball is put in play, are your guys positioned correctly? Do you get the batted ball luck in your favor? Those kinds of things.
All
if you
the nerdy
eliminated
numbers.
all of that, based upon the way that you are pitching, what would we expect a typical ERA to be for you, right? It's like if you play it in front of a neutral defense, not good, not bad, what would your ERA probably look like? It's not perfect, but it gives you a glimmer of how are you really pitching? So for a guy like John Gant a year ago for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Oh, we all loved John Gant.
He had a horrible fielding independent pitching, despite the fact that his actual ERA while pitching on the mound for the Cardinals was quite good. And then we saw, this disappearing act, it's not going so well anymore. He's walking the world. The bases are loaded every time he comes out there. And now they're starting to string together hits against him. So for Matthew Liberatore, the reason that I bring this up, Alex, is because his fielding independent pitching this year is quite good. It is actually a lot better than his overall ERA is on the year, which signifies he's had some unfortunate batted ball luck against him on the season. Matthew Liberatore this year, to give you the context on where he ranks right now, the pitchers that are surrounding him in fielding independent ERA are Merrill Kelly, Robbie Ray, Freddie Peralta, Carlos Rodon, Dylan Cease, Chris Bassett.
Okay, so he's a 2 or a 3.
He has been very good this season for the St. Louis Cardinals, and that is a long-winded way, as I typically do, for me to say, this has been an overwhelming success, dude. This time last year, we're like, oh, thank God they at least got a decent reliever out of Matthew Liberatore. No, he's not a closer. You can't put him out there against righties. But if you utilize him in the exact correct way, hot damn, can he be a nice reliever in, the 7th inning?
Yeah.
And
Steven
now,
Matz.
Yeah, he's basically last year what Matt's early this season was for you. Now you're looking at it, and I feel pretty confident Libby can be a mid-rotation starter. If you started him in a Game 3 or a Game 4 of a playoff series, I think he kind of matches up with the other starters that he would be going up against in that scenario. That doesn't mean mission accomplished, rotation fixed, but you're starting to plug in pieces to certain aspects of your roster, and I think Matthew Liberatore is among those pieces right now. All right, next pitcher up. Success, failure, or incomplete for the Cardinals runway season. Today we're doing the starting pitchers. That was Liberatore. Now we get to Andre
Eric
Palante.
Fetty. Oh.
Yeah, the season of runway for Eric Fetty.
Well, he keeps getting starts, so.
Hey, man, you're not wrong. Would you say it's been a success, failure, or incomplete for Andre Palante?
I'd say it's a success because you got your answer. And I think a lot of people would say a failure, but again, I think this is just the way I define it. To me, I know that this guy at best is a number 5 for you, but he's going to eat innings. And technically, you need a lot of those guys. He's cheap for you. His FIP, as BK likes to use, is almost identical to what his ERA is. So, like, you know what he is going to provide you. You're going to get some good starts. You're going to get some bad starts, but he's going to post every 5th day for you. So, to me, I call that a success because he's a cheap option to be the back end start. If you just told me that my rotation in front of Palante was better and Palante was what Miles Michaelis is in terms of you're our 5th starter, man, that's an improvement in my opinion.
I'm with you. I think it's been a success for Andre Palante.
Yeah.
We know what his strength is. He's going to get ground balls galore. I think he's still number 1 in Major League Baseball in ground ball rate this year. I'll have to check that here in just a minute to find out exactly.
He'll get the numbers for you, too.
Ground ball rate, he is second. He's second in the league. He has given up that top spot. Jose Soriano is now number 1 in Major League Baseball. That's a huge disappointment. But Palante's right behind him, right ahead of Framber Valdez and Christopher Sanchez. He is a great ground ball pitcher, and he is quite bad against right-handed hitters, and he's quite good against left-handed hitters. That is who Andre Palante is, was, always has been, and probably always will be. There is value in that. As a starter in Major League Baseball in his career, he has a 4 ERA. 4.
Yeah.
You can work with that, dude. Mm-hmm. It's not sexy. It's not super exciting, but honestly, he's Dakota Hudson. That's what he is.
Yeah. That's an ace for me.
Yeah. For most people, it's a number 5.
That's an L. Well, we just have differing opinions.
Dakota Hudson was a ground ball pitcher who walked more batters than you would have liked. Palante sometimes has those same issues. He does not strike anybody out, but ground balls galore. You're going to kill all the worms whenever he's out there that are in the infield dirt. He's a really solid guy to have in your rotation. You're always probably as a fan going to want to upgrade from Andre Palante, but as an organization, if you've got him on cost-controlled deals, it's a pretty nice guy to have as your number 5.
And it's a great option that if you upgrade over him in terms of a 5 starter, because 1 through 4 is just elite, that's a perfect option to have as that 6th man that's used in the bullpen for you. Like, he's a versatile player, and to me, that's where the success has come from with Andre Palante. So it's hard for me to walk away from this season saying it's an incomplete that I don't have answers on. I know what these guys are, and I don't think it's a failure because you know what they are.
Yeah, I think we've learned a lot about the 2 starters that have been given that opportunity so far this year. So I would say, so overall, it's been a success in the rotation on the 2 guys that you've seen thus far. Hopefully we find out more
the 2
about
guys.
Michael McGreevy in the second half of the season, and it can be a success for him
Probably
as well.
not.
Alex, would you say overall this has been a success or a failure or somewhere incomplete with a runway season for the Cardinals? I'm talking the entire roster. Infielders, outfielders, pitchers that we have seen thus far. If you want to include the bullpen, feel free to do so. We didn't use them because, frankly, I don't think you really develop bullpen arms, but neither here nor there. Would you say it's been a successful year for them on the runway?
I would call it a success because after we have gone through all of these, I think I only had like 2 incompletes. Otherwise, I've had success or failures attached to a lot of them. Like Jordan Walker was an incomplete in my opinion, and I forget who the other one. Gorman was an incomplete. No, I think Gorman was a fact for me because I said or a success, however you want to label it. I didn't have.
You feel like you know.
I didn't have a lot of incompletes for this team. I think we've gotten, at least for me, I've gotten the answers of what the Cardinals were searching for.
Burleson was the one that you said incomplete,
yes, thank
because you don't know what he's going to be in the second half, and that's when it fell apart last year.
But like. The main pieces that we were talking about, with the exception of Jordan Walker, I've got the answers. Now I'm starting to see how this roster is going to shape in terms of everyday players in certain positions. And I think the big ones that fall in the category were Lars Nootbaar and Nolan Gorman. You found out those 2, which I think are very important.
I think you have mostly found out the answers that you needed, and I think it's been a success overall. I think the hard part, though, is, okay, you did the work. Mm-hmm. The manager played the players that you needed to see. Now, whether it be at the trade deadline or in the offseason, you did all of this for a reason. To find out information, right? To see what you have internally. And now the evaluation part will be complete, again, once we get either to the deadline or the offseason, depending on when they decide to make these moves. Now it is about valuation. How do you value individual players? I think we have a pretty good idea of what Nolan Gorman is. He's going to strike out a ton. He's going to play below average defense in the field, and he's going to be a guy that if you played him every single day can probably hit you 30 home runs. How do you value that? Is that something that you do think is worthy of being around long term? Hey, Lars Nootbaar, you saw what it is, right? It's a relatively speaking low average, high on base, not a lot of slug, but the overall numbers, if he plays every day, probably get you to like 20 home runs by the end of the season. So there's some pop in his bat. What's the value of that? And given the context of the roster with Brendan Donovan on it, do you keep that guy long term, or does he have more value for you in some kind of a trade? So that's where things get really interesting. And my guess is that will be a Chaim Bloom decision more so than a John Mozeliak decision. So that's why I think a lot of this, even if it should maybe be filtered through at the deadline, I think a lot of it is going to be pushed off to the offseason so that way Bloom can make his choices on each of these individual players.
Yeah, which it should, because you don't want to jump into something like this unless somebody is just crazy and gives you a wild deal. But again, like, I think it's starting to get clearer of where these guys fall into line. And in my opinion, like Lars Nootbaar, I just don't know if he fits into the future of this team. That piece might get you something in return that does fill the hole, or he, along with others, could get you the piece. I think it's pretty obvious you've got one spot you need to find, and it's a right-handed bat to play the right field or left field position. That's the missing piece if Weatherholt is the superstar that Keith Law said he is.
He's Alex. That's Grant. I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys would like to get involved in the show, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to do so. We also had somebody on the text line that said, BK, you should ask for mic drops, because that previous segment at 11:15 was great, talking about the cap, where the Cardinals spend, and whether or not that is something actually that has been a bit of an issue for the organization when it comes to the fans talking about the team. If you guys want to react to that, or if you guys want to get involved in any of our Cardinals conversations from today, feel free to do so on the mic drop feature over on the 101 ESPN app. It is the Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature, again, over on the 101 ESPN app. Coming up next, is this a crazy idea for Eli Drinkwitz? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and Grant on BK. So Eli Drinkwitz is up at SEC Media Days today, Alex, and he created quite the stir.
Yeah, buddy.
And I'm not talking about him bringing up some stuff with the Epstein files or anything like that. Nope. That was different.
Damn it, BK. Save that for the junk drawer.
I'm talking about what he had to say that was even more controversial in some corners of the internet about the college football playoff. Go ahead and take a listen. This is via the On3 Football Podcast.
Instead of doing 11-5, which you're going to put 11 teams in the hands of a human committee that nobody's going to agree. They're all going to have implicit bias. Why would we even do that? I mean, nobody thinks that the NCAA, we spend hours arguing about who was the 69th and 70th team in the NCAA tournament. What do you think we're going to do with the 11 there? So why not expand the opportunities? Give 4 play-in games to the SEC, 4 play-in games to the Big Ten, 3 to the ACC, 3 to the Big 12, and say, man, create more opportunities for the fan bases to get excited, create more opportunities for players to compete for championships. And that doesn't sit well with probably some of the blue bloods who are going to consistently be ranked in preseason rankings in the top 25 explicitly because of their names, not necessarily because of their teams, but because of the brand bias that we have in college football. Instead, make people earn it. Make people earn it on the field.
Damn, Drink.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look here.
Taking shots at the blue bloods.
Now, why would he say 8 from the SEC?
Think.
Let me take a look at the standings from a year ago. Oh, Mizzou was 8th in the SEC last year. That's very interesting.
Why would he do that?
Alex, what do you think of his idea, expanding to 30 teams for the college football playoff? He said 16, hold my beer. Yeah. What about 30?
Yeah, I mean, look, the first thing I thought of was cool. So Drink's just basically saying everybody gets in. That's what we have become. But the other part of me, I guess the evil part of me is like, I kind of like it. Hey, man, if I get a lot of play-in playoff games that mean something, it creates excitement. And he's not wrong in terms of we argue over, for the longest time, 2 teams that don't even matter most times than not that get into the tournament. And you're going to do that with 11 of these teams. But I think overall, I like the idea because it creates a lot more teams that get in, a lot more playoff games.
It does eliminate a lot of the excitement about the regular season. I have argued with T-Bone on this a lot about the expansion of the playoff, whether or not there's value in it or whatever. If you did 30, the regular season ceases to matter.
Totally. And that was my follow-up question. Like, cool, what's this schedule look like? How many regular season games are you playing? Because you're not just...
probably play like 11.
I was going to say, because you're cutting out what? That would be 3 games that you're cutting out? If you go to 11 for the regular season? Oh, 1. Yeah, see, I think you got to go shorter than that, which I don't think you can do. Because if you're creating 4 play-in games for the SEC and 4 for the other conference, that's adding like 2 weeks to the schedule.
Yeah.
And you got to consider the break that they have. So, I mean, you'd have to cut it down significantly into the regular season, which that's what people are going to get upset about.
And this is why, like, I think that's crazy.
But do I care about getting excited about a Week 7 game versus if I get 3 more playoff games and my team gets a chance to go deeper into the playoffs?
I hear you. It's too much to me. I think if you want to expand to 16, I was always a proponent of the 8-team playoff. I thought that would have been the right number. Hey, man, if we're expanding, we're expanding. It is what it is. I think there are ways that you could make it really compelling. Like, if you wanted to, I think you could say, like, hey, there are 6 teams from the SEC that are quote-unquote in the playoff. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a way to make it interesting to where, like, okay, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. That's the first round of the college football playoff. You could have that within the SEC and the Big Ten, right? So for each of those conferences, you get 6 teams. Again, I'm going to say in the playoff, but it's not really in the playoff because they're only going to play against their respective conferences. The top 2 teams in either conference get a bye. Okay, so let me explain this in a way that hopefully will be easy for listeners to follow. Top 2 teams in the SEC. Top 2 teams in the Big Ten. Those are the 2 big conferences right now. We can all agree on that. They get a bye. They're automatically qualified to get into the college football playoff, right? Mm-hmm. 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5 from both conferences. So 8 total teams we're talking about here, 4 from each. those teams have a play-in game. Instead of playing the quote-unquote conference championship, this is basically championship week. 3 versus 6. Are you following, Alex?
Yeah.
3 versus 6, 4 versus 5. And that allows you to get to those 2 final spots from each team, each conference.
Yeah.
Because the current setup that they're talking about for the 16-team playoff is 4 from the SEC, 4 from the Big Ten, and then you continue on from there. This would get you to those 4, but it expands it by 2 extra teams for either of those 2 conferences, and you just basically would replace that conference championship week with 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5 from the Big Ten and the SEC. How would you feel about that? Because you're not actually expanding the actual playoff. The bracket wouldn't start until you get the 4 from the Big Ten and the 4 from the SEC.
Yeah, and that I think makes a lot more sense. That makes a lot more sense, and it's expanding it enough to where you're adding in a couple more playoff teams. You get the excitement, but you're not going crazy with it where you're like, because like you said, you could go to 30 teams. The playoffs really don't start until you weed out all of these teams that shouldn't even be there. Then you really get into it, which does take away that illustriousness of the middle of the season when you get those playoff matchups.
I also like placing an emphasis on being in the top 2 in your conference. That's part of this is, hey, the top 2 teams, like last year, Georgia and Texas, you get a bye. You're in the playoff. Like, there's no question about it. You're automatically into the bracket. If you finish 6th in your conference, I don't know that you should get that exact same reward as what Texas and Georgia did. So, like last year in the SEC, this would have meant you would have seen South Carolina versus Tennessee in a play-in game and Alabama versus LSU in a play-in game. I think that would have been a hell of a lot of fun, man. So I think there could be a way to do this where it ends up, first of all, TV would love this.
Oh, God, yeah.
You're talking about that from the SEC, and then on the Big Ten side of things, if you were doing this play-in from a year ago, just to give you an example of how it would have worked out, Oregon and Indiana automatically in. And then you would have had Penn State versus Iowa, and Ohio State versus Illinois. Again, I think that would have been a hell of a lot of fun. I think Illinois and Iowa would have gotten beat pretty badly in those respective games, but
still an extra group of fan bases that get in and you get more people and more eyes.
If you're an Illini fan and I get a play-in game, a 1-game setting against Ohio State at the Horseshoe, and it's in like mid-November, late November, whatever it would have been, dude, that would have been a hell of a lot of fun to be able to watch. As a fan of college football, I would have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That would have been awesome. So
do you think they're going to get to the point that, because this just feels like you're trending into where they get rid of the conferences?
No, Big Ten and SEC won't be. No, I think like the NCAA may cease to exist in its current format, but it doesn't really have any oversight already with college football. The only thing that it has oversight for right now is the NCAA tournament. I don't think you're going to get rid of conferences. I think they'll just continue to consolidate. Like the Big 12 has 100 teams in it right now. The SEC and the Big 10 are both 16 teams apiece. So it's these massive conferences, and you'll have fewer and fewer of them over the years that actually matter.
Yeah.
Somebody said, do you work in the bowl games for this, or would they go away in this format? I think you should just get... There is a value, I believe, in still having those bowl games. They exist, whatever. It is what it is. But these would not, in my opinion, be tied into the bowl games. I would rather have them hosted on their respective campuses. Yeah. Right? So, like, in this 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5, it would be in the Big Ten setting. Like, Illinois would go to Ohio State to play at Ohio State.
Yeah.
In this game.
That absolutely should be a no-doubter for those, because you need more of those. Yeah. Take the neutral sites out of it and give the fans the home field advantage.
Yeah, and then I think that the first round of the college football playoff should also be played on your respective campuses. I think they got that right in the first version of this expanded playoff from last year.
I think it should go all the way up to the end to the championship
They
game.
won't do that. They won't do that because there's too much money involved with some of these bowl games, but for the tie-in, I would at least like to see, for that first round, that play-in style, and then the actual first round of the college football playoff, that part I would like to see stay on campuses. Yeah. And I think it will. I think that's something that they viewed as being a success from a year ago. All right, in 15 minutes, we're going to dive into the junk drawer, but next, how different are the situations that Craig Berube found himself in his first season as the head coach of the Blues? I'm talking the first full season, not the 2019 Cup run, but after that, and where Jim Montgomery is at today. We'll talk about that next year on BK and Ferrario.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Earlier today, the Cardinals signed their number 5 overall draft pick, left-handed pitcher Liam Doyle, to a team record $7.25 million bonus. The Cardinals will be back in action tomorrow following the All-Star break. It'll be an 8:40 first pitch as they start their 3-game set out in Arizona. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update's been brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
All right, so Grant asked us a question before the show today, Alex. And I looked at him like he had 7 different heads.
Yeah, he does it a lot, Grant. I know you're not used to it, but does it all the time.
And he said, hey, how different are the situations that Jim Montgomery is walking into this season after his first half of a season with the Blues compared to Craig Berube's first full season coming off of the 2019? Yes, it was the year, the run to the Cup, but it was half of a season for him as well. And I said, well, Grant, one main difference is that one of them actually went to and won the Stanley Cup. And he said, yes, I understand.
There was a lot of tone.
There was so much tone. So much tone.
He said, but beyond that, what are the differences? And I was like, all right, here's what we're going to do. I'll have you present this. That way I can better understand it while we're on the air. So, Grant, when you're thinking through this, the differences between the two situations that they inherit, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I think obviously you got to take the Stanley Cup into account. Obviously, like the Blues win the Stanley Cup, they go into the season after that. It's a different situation. But in the playoffs, a lot of success goes through luck. Like you go to that Game 7 in the second round. Like if Jamie Benn scores on the wraparound, that season's over and nobody recalls the 2019 run. It's just another playoff run that ended in disappointment for the Blues. Similar to what just happened, where the Blues had awful luck at the end of a game where they blew a 3-1 lead late against the Winnipeg Jets. Like the same thing could have happened against Dallas in 2019, and nobody's talking about 2019 anymore. That being said, you know, despite what happened that year in 2019, you go into the next season, which was Craig Berube's first year, full year as head coach of the St. Louis Blues, and they are one of the best teams in the NHL. They win the Central Division. Obviously, COVID happened, so there's a little bit of an asterisk on it, but like they were a dominant team that season. And
that team rocked. I think people forget how good they were.
That team should have won the Stanley. That team would have been in the Stanley Cup final with a chance to win it back-to-back years if COVID doesn't happen.
I agree. But you look at that. You take that into account. You take the playoffs out of it. You take the 2019 playoffs out. You take what just happened in the playoffs out, and you compare the two teams. They are eerily similar, in my opinion. You look at the regular season. Craig Berube goes on this 11-game franchise record-setting win streak. So does Jim Montgomery to make the playoffs. This team finished with 96 points. Berube's team finished with 99. The final record for Berube, 45-28-9, 44-30-8 for Jim Montgomery. They are pretty much the exact same team when you look at the regular season. Playoffs didn't play out the same way, but how similar is the situation now for Jim Montgomery going into this full first season where Craig Berube had a ton of success doing it?
The difference for me in just looking at that roster the next season, and again, you're trying to put yourself into the mindset of Stanley Cup didn't happen. Look at the regular season, which I know, BK, very difficult. I struggled
with that part.
I know. It's hard. The regular season, to me, it's hope versus expectation. Like, Berube's team that year, it was expectation. Even if the Cup never happened, look at the roster that they had. You had a 31-year-old David Perron. You had a 35-year-old Steen, a 29-year-old Pietrangelo. You had a 35-year-old Jay Bouwmeester, 28-year-old Schenn, 27-year-old Schwartz. Like, you had a roster that was in the middle, if not the back end of their prime. So there was no more of like, ooh, what could be? It was, this better happen. Whereas now, yes, they made the playoffs, and yes, you were 1 game away from Winnipeg. But again, just look at the regular season. Man, there's a lot more hope surrounding this team. When you talk about a core that's 24 and 25 with a lot of dudes who are under the age of 23 and players who aren't even at the NHL level yet, your defense is now set for the next 5+ years. I think it's more like 2019, that season was all about expectations. Again, regular season performance without the postseason. This is a group that needs to win in the next 2 years. Otherwise, it's going to start to be, hey, we're going to have to figure out what to do. Whereas this one's like, hey, you probably should make the playoffs because you were a playoff team. But if you just look at the regular season, man, there is so much more opportunity with what this team could do in terms of a full training camp under Jim Montgomery.
So I'm going to say something that might be a little weird. It sounds strange given the fact that, one of these teams had a cup.
Not weirder than Aaron Boone being fired after the All-Star game.
I think this team is more talented than the 2019-2020 team. More talented.
I'd agree with that.
I think there are more questions about it, right? Like, I think going into that season with 2020, O'Reilly, Perron, Shin, Schwartz, Petro, you go up and down this list. Like, you have guys that are either in the prime of their careers or, as Alex said, getting towards the end of their primes. The other thing is contractually, it was just such a different situation. You had a lot of guys on that team that were nearing the end of their contracts in St. Louis, and it was decision time coming up of, all right, what are we going to do here? Are they going to be here into their late 30s, or are these guys that this is it? This is their time here in St. Louis, and it's getting ready to come to an end. And meanwhile, this one, you're at the very beginning for most of your core players of, like, Thomas is under contract for the next 6 years. We just basically had a decision made on, hey, Jordan Kyrou is going to be here probably for the next 6 seasons with St. Louis. Snuggerud, this is the very beginning. We thought Bolduc, that was the case for him, but unfortunately, no, it's the Mayu who is at the very beginning. Broberg, Holloway, etc. So I think contractually you're in a very different place. And I think overall the talent level of this team is such that I think it's actually a little higher than it was for Craig Berube's team. I just think that they're potentially going to be asked to go about it quite differently. That team was known for defense and their stifling style of play. This team, I do think, has a little bit higher upside when it comes to getting into the offensive zone, putting shots on net, and potentially being one of the better goal-scoring teams in the league.
I think Herb said this last season towards the end of the year, and I totally agree with him. This team has amassed the most talent that we've seen on the Blues roster in a while. Like, in terms of just skill set. I mean, you have snipers, if you want to call them that, from the first line down to the third line. You've got the big body defenseman now. You've got a goaltending tandem that's probably as good as what Binnington and Allen were, if not better. It's where they're at in terms of the style, and it's why I kind of find this season fascinating with Jim Montgomery, because I think the area everyone's talking about is defense now. And if you look at 2019, that first full season with Craig Berube, that defense was set. Everyone knew you got two Hall of Famers in terms of Bouwmeester and Pietrangelo. Mm-hmm. Vince Dunn was there, the young upside of a player. You had the grizzled vets in terms of Gunnarsson and Bortuzzo, and then the big question mark of Justin Falk. What was he going to be, the trade of Joel Edmondson?
And you didn't mention Parayko.
Yeah, didn't even mention Parayko, but I mean, he was an established guy. And I think you could kind of go the same way right now, if not more improvement, because of the offense they provide. Broberg, along with Parayko, along with Fowler. Tucker is that gritty type of guy. You've got the question mark of Logan Mailloux and Justin Falk, who's one of those veterans. So I think the defense might be more set up the defense was more set up for Berube, but there's a higher ceiling for this defense in terms of Jim Montgomery.
That's interesting. When you compare the defensive cores now, like
I said this during the season, I think they've got a better defensive core than what they had in 2019.
Petro's the one that makes it tough. Like, Petro is just such a great all-around player, and I think he even sometimes gets a little underrated for how great he was. And I don't think you necessarily have anybody that matches him one-for-one on this current roster. Yeah. Parayko's great, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's Petro, and that's, again, not a shot against Parayko. The thing that I find to be so interesting, man, and I'm really curious both of your perspectives on this. When you think about what, for that team, what they had defensively with, like, Gunnarsson, and who was the other one that was kind of in that
Bortuzzo.
role? Bortuzzo.
Edmondson. Or if we're talking the year after the Cup, Edmondson was traded. They had Falk.
Gunnarsson. That's the one that I'm thinking.
Gunnarsson was the one that could go around.
How does he compare to what you have currently as options on this year's team?
If I'm looking at it the same way, I think Falk is your Gunnarsson. And I would say it was an upgrade with Gunnarsson, because Gunnarsson was a better all-around defender, and I don't know if Falk falls into that, because I'm trying to break it down piece by piece. To me, Parayko is your alpha, just like Pietrangelo was. I think Broberg is more of your Bouwmeester in terms of two-way defenseman that's got the speed. Fowler's your Vince Dunn with the offensive upside. And then remember, Justin Falk was used as that top four guy.
He has the right side.
Right now he is.
Left side,
If I were to be a betting man, which I am, Mayu is that role by the second month of the season.
Interesting.
And then Falk and Tucker drop down to be what Gunnarsson and Bortuzzo was. And I think if I look at what Gunnarsson and Bortuzzo were that season, they were a sure thing. Like, I knew what they were going to provide. I think Falk is kind of that way. Tucker's still a question mark. So I would give the edge to that third pair of Gunnarsson and Bortuzzo just because of the experience.
What about Edmondson? And this is going back to the Cup run.
Yeah.
But do you have an Edmondson on this team?
I think Tucker could be your Edmondson.
Interesting.
I think Tucker could be your Tucker's got offensive upside. Jim Montgomery loved him in terms of jumping into the rush. And I think Tucker's two-way ability, now he's not big like Edmondson, but Tucker's two-way ability in terms of moving the puck out of his own end and good in front of his own net, I think that could be very similar to Joel Edmondson.
I think comparing now to 2019, I think now the decor is a little bit less mature than it was in 2019, just in terms of experience. And I also think it's just not as deep. I think the one in 2019 was more deep. And I kind of agree with you, Alex. I think they might be more talented right now in terms of offensive production. But if you look at just how solid they were up and down, all three pairings, and even your seventh defenseman back in 2019, they're not that deep right now. I think they're getting there. I think when you get some of these prospects that mature too, I think they're definitely getting there. I just don't think they're there yet.
So overall, how would you say that the teams compare? The situation that Craig Berube had going into 2020 versus the situation that Jim Montgomery inherits going into this upcoming season. How do you think they're similar? How would you compare the two?
I think this team's better. I think this team's better than that team.
Like, you think that team finished with 94 points in 71 games. So they were on pace to have more than 100 points. Like, they were on pace to be basically what they were in 22.
Yeah.
I don't think this team is similar to that.
I think they're similar. I don't think they're good. I don't think they're better than that because
So they're not better.
You're not, well, so that's the thing. Like, you're not a 100-plus point team, in my opinion. But I also think it's the teams around you that make that a little bit more difficult.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask as a follow-up. If you're better, then why aren't you going to be that?
Because of the teams around you. Like, I think there's more top-heavy teams compared to what it was back in 2019 in the Western Conference in general. But I do think if I look at this team from top to bottom, I think this one's deeper than what that one had, because remember, you lost Maroon that season and you were relying on Sammy Blais and Zach Sanford to be top 9 forwards for you. And defensively, as we just discussed, I mean, you could pick at it however you want, but the question mark comes to Logan Mailloux. If the upside's there, I think this defense might have more upside. And although Binnington and Allen were awesome that year, my gut tells me Binnington and Hofer are going to be just as good this year. So
I'm not ready to say they're better than they were in 2020, that 2019-20 season. I think there's a potential for more talent on the roster.
That's right.
But I think that going into this upcoming season, it is, I don't want to say a developmental year because it is going to be a competitive year. Like, they're going to want to make the playoffs and do some damage. I'm not saying that this is a year of just building and seeing where it goes. I think this is a competitive, do some damage in the playoffs year. But in a sense, it still is a little bit of a developmental year because you have a lot of younger players. Like, in that 2019-20 season, you didn't have near as many younger players as you do right now. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just the case of the matter. So Jim Montgomery, who I think is going to do a fantastic job of this, is going to have to still toe that line of developing these younger players like a Logan Mailloux, for example, but also being competitive and doing your damage in the playoffs.
And see, I think because the biggest thing that I've seen a ton of people already texting when I said, like, I think they're better in terms of talent-wise than what that 2019 team was. Everybody's bringing up defense. Like, this team's nowhere near as good as that team was defensively. And, man, this is all about structure. This is all about, do you have faith in the guy that's in charge of the scheme that they have on the ice? And, man, go back and look at what Jim Montgomery has done and everywhere he's been. He's been top 5 in terms of goals allowed on both teams in Dallas before he was let go in that second season, and then both teams in Boston. And then go look through those names on those rosters.
It is interesting. I mean, you look at the Blues just as the guide here. The moment that Ken Hitchcock takes over, they get good defensively.
Yeah.
Like, it was a pain out Hitch in, we're good defensively now. And so, okay, so maybe the structure was kind of a big part of this. And the same thing was true last year. Bannister out, Monty in, Blues are good defensively suddenly.
And that was
the
without
roster
practice.
didn't really shake up. I mean, they added in Cam Fowler, but the roster for the most part stayed relatively stable. And they just immediately got like top 10 to 12 in the league defensively. It's crazy.
To me, Dallas is a perfect example. Before Jim Montgomery took over 2017, 2018, they were middle of the pack defensively. He takes over in that full season, 2018, 2019. They were they were second best in terms of goals allowed. And Miro Heiskanen was on that team. Everyone's like, oh, Miro Heiskanen was there. He was probably one of their worst guys at the time. He was 21 years old. Their best players were Lindell and John Klingberg, and that's with Jim Montgomery there. So I think system is more important than player name recognition, which is why I'm kind of intrigued by when Jim Montgomery takes his over. I think the defense might be better than what people are giving them credit for this season.
He's Alex. That's great. I'm BK. Coming up in about 15 minutes. Who is the key player for the Cardinals in the second half of the season? MLB.com had their ideas for each team across Major League Baseball. I disagree with who they chose for the Cardinals. We'll talk about that, though, coming up in about 15 minutes. Give you our answer to that question. The Junk Drawer is coming up next here on BK and Ferrario.
it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Should the All-Star break be longer for Major League Baseball? I'm genuinely asking.
It has no impact on me because I'm already off. The hockey season's underway, so no, probably not.
I kind of feel like we could go a little longer with the Major League Baseball All-Star break. This thing started on Sunday, man. Like, Sunday was the last games that were played. We start games again tomorrow. That's 4 days off.
Hockey only has about what? Not
Isn't
normal.
it a full week?
I don't think it's a full week. I think they only get like 3 or 4 days.
I'm trying to remember when it was in St. Louis because this past season was different with 4 nations.
Yeah, you'd have to go back to like 2024. Let me see if I could pull it up. 2024. No. Yeah, they had February. Oh, no, that was last year. Hold on. I got to go back even further. Hold on. No, I mean, they typically get about a week off.
Yeah,
February 1st, February 10th. Yeah.
I think the All-Star break should be longer.
There's just nothing going on at this time of the year.
Right. That's why we don't want it to be longer, because us in this business, we're like,
Well, it's not just this business.
We went 4 days with no content, BK. How could we possibly go another?
No, it's not just. I think it's just for sports fans. Like, there's nothing else to pay attention. Like last
That's
night
why the ESPYs were last night.
Yeah, last night was weird, man. I got to watch a little bit, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. And then what else? Like, throughout the year, there's something going on that I can pay attention to.
I think players deserve more time off. That's really what I'm arguing here. Is
okay, so the players came to you then, and they were like,
I wonder if part of the reason why the All-Star game guys get out of there so quickly is because they're like, man, I got 48 hours to rest and recuperate. I better get my behind out of here as quickly as humanly possible. Whereas if they had, a full 10 days to get away for a little bit, and I'm including the All-Star game here, so the guys that are in it would still only have, 5 days. But if we started back up on, I don't know, Monday of next week, would that be the worst thing in the world?
No, you should give them
an
a
extra
whole week.
3 or 4 days here?
You should give them a whole week off. Like, you can't give 4 days and be like, cool, we need you for 2 of them, and then you get the other 2. You do need to give them at least a week off.
If you extended out the All-Star festivities a little bit, so we're like, hey, we normally right now are doing the Futures game on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Dude, it gets buried. I'm watching the Cardinals on Saturday. I don't have time to watch the Cardinals and then also go out and watch J.J. Weatherholt in the Futures game. I would like to see it, but what if you instead, like, hey, the kickoff of All-Star Week is the Major League Baseball draft. And then the day after the draft, after you see all of these new guys that are being selected, we are now going to show you the All-Star Futures game. Those are the long-term future. Now you're seeing the more immediate future with the Futures game. And then the next day you get something else, the Home Run Derby. And then after that you get the actual All-Star festivities. And then you get, 3 days off. I think we could go about, and then that's the ESPYs. Friday night are the ESPYs, right?
Yeah. Woo.
I think we should have Major League Baseball's All-Star Week extended. And I'm saying that as somebody that works in this industry, so that would be bad for us.
Yeah. I mean, from the player perspective, I agree with it. Like, everybody should have at least a week off for that, especially those guys, to where and so many of them are selected to play at the All-Star game, so you're not talking about, like, one from every team and that's it. A lot of the teams take like 3 or 4 guys from it. So, yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of it. It sucks for a sports fan because you just want something to watch, but I get it. Let's just go back and start playing some reruns of different events for that entire week so we can live some type of sport.
Somebody in the text line said, BK, chill. I've been stuck watching Love Island this week. I need the Cardinals back in my life.
I get that.
Did you pick up anything this week?
No. God, no.
No?
Yeah, I picked up a dog this week, and so that's been my life. When I've only been able to catch like 2 hours worth of the game, and then you're trying to do replays and re-catch up while you're trying to deal with all of the other lifestyles.
This is the week that Big Brother starts, so we've been locked
there he
in.
is.
with our Big Brother viewing experiences. My wife, anytime there's a new documentary on Netflix, we are immediately locked into that. So last night we watched the documentary of the girl that disappeared from the cruise.
From the cruise.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were watching the Sherry Papini one. That one was good.
It's been very good. We're on the second episode now, so it's been good. I'm curious if others have
My wife and
picked up some new television show this week as well.
Yeah, we haven't picked it up, but we went back and we're starting to rewatch Boy Meets World.
Oh, really?
We're doing that
How's it hold
together.
up?
Good, actually.
Yeah?
It was one of my favorite shows growing up, and so now we're rewatching. It's like, oh, this.
Or you're like the big Alex Ferrario sitting at home as a, 14-year-old, a tween.
The tween? Oh, geez.
Tween stages, like the 12 to 15 years old.
Boy Meets World was big for me. We used to watch that one.
I was Fresh Prince of Bel-Air all day, every day.
Just weirdly enough, mine was MTV too. Like,
Sure.
come home
Get
and watch
home.
the music videos. TRL, man, watch those music videos as much as possible.
When there were actual videos. Do you remember music videos?
I've
Grant?
watched zero of everything you're talking
Grant
about.
knows I can't have conversations during hockey season about movies or TV shows with Grant because he looks at me with a blank stare.
Really?
Yeah,
Did you
Grant-
not watch anything growing up either?
Not really.
Really?
To be honest, if I'm going to watch something, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I go back and watch old hockey highlights.
Really?
Yeah.
That's why
So you
Grant
don't watch anything pop culture-wise?
Not usually. Like, I'll watch some things, like, for instance, Stranger Things.
Okay.
Like, when that pops back up, I'll watch that.
I just started
I've watched
watching that
Squid
and I
Game.
couldn't get through it.
Yeah,
You
I
watched
mean,
Squid Game?
I did. I'm actually
You watch all
watching.
three?
I'm watching the third one right now. So
The games are cool. I
It's
thought the
like-
season
I
kinda
haven't
went a
seen
little off
Squid
the rails.
Games.
it's good.
Yeah.
But like, it's very rare
That's-
for
that's the
me.
correct
It's
response.
very rare.
It's good.
Okay, good. I won't put it at the top of my cue chart.
Season 1, man, there was some real momentum behind it.
Yeah.
Season 2
Yeah.
was like, all right, we're really getting somewhere here. And then season 3 was like, I guess he landed the plane.
That's why I didn't watch
well,
it because
thanks.
everyone
Now
was excited about
I
it.
might not even finish watching it now. that
The
you say
games
that.
are
what a
fun.
jerk.
Like the actual games themselves.
Don't
It's
the games include like killing people?
Yeah, it's fun.
And they're fun? Okay, cool.
Grant would agree.
I mean,
It's like it's a.
yeah.
I liked the Saw film, so I can't really say much.
I don't know. I don't watch many things, and if I do, it's usually sports related.
Yeah. I just don't watch a lot of things anymore.
Getting home, once I got to like high school age, it was the classic, all right, ESPN, we've got Around the Horn, we've got PTI, leading into Sports Center, and then there will be a game after. And that was my...
I didn't get to Sports Center until probably about 15. I was more video games up until that
really?
point. Like, I was more sports video games and like Nintendo 64. And then once you hit like that 14, 15 age, that's when it started to get real heavy into Sports Center.
We've got a lot of people on our text line that are interested in Big Brother. We should do like a Big Brother minute.
I did used to watch Big Brother.
See, there we go.
I used to watch it.
I've never seen Big Brother.
It
And
is
I have
amazing
no
to me,
interest.
the shows that are on like CBS, Fox, the traditional network television, you see the numbers for people that are watching some of these shows, you're like, who are these individuals? Yeah. And then I realize, oh, it's me. Like I am
I'm
that
that guy.
individual that is watching the terrible, crappy television show. But like Big Bang Theory, stuff like that, dude, the numbers are crazy in terms of how many people are watching.
I don't know.
that
For
stuff.
me, like TV shows, for instance, like Big Brother, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it felt more real. Now everything just feels fabricated. It feels forced.
That's what
I can't watch that.
That's what I did watch a lot. Going back to like American Idol, I used to watch religiously.
Yeah.
Fear Factor when Joe Rogan hosted.
Oh, dude, great show.
Watch it, which I think they're bringing that back with Johnny Knoxville doing it, which perfect person to put in charge over Joe Rogan.
Really?
But like those were the shows that like used to be religiously Wednesday night at 7:00. This was on. I'm watching Fear Factor. It was like those game show contest shows I used to watch.
Yeah, Fear Factor was a great one. It had like a great, what do you think, 4-year run?
Oh, yeah. And a lot of it was just because of Joe Rogan's personality
was
with
great.
the contestants that they brought in and some of the stuff that they did.
You'd
I
be
mean,
surprised. I did watch Fear Factor.
did you?
I did used to
I
watch
was
that.
religious watching that
is
one.
not a factor for it. Was such a good.
I used to
one.
always
Such a
judge it too, be like, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that.
good- Yeah, there were some that I was like, I could not do that. No,
All the stuff where you were eating it, I could do that in a heartbeat.
really.
Yeah, you just eat it.
You know,
Power through.
some of them you like get into this chamber and there are snakes or
Oh, yeah, I
critters
was out on
around you. I
those.
was like, nah.
And all the stuff where you were high up and you were walking,
dude,
it's like
no
if
chance.
you're putting the money out there for me, I'll do it because I'll defy death. I don't care.
You know what really just, I don't understand it, is how people can watch something one time and then quote it. like multiple times. I can't do that. I can barely remember what I ate for breakfast half the time.
I can quote films like nobody's business.
I can watch something and go back and watch it a month later and completely forget what had happened.
My friendship with a buddy from grade school is solely based off of movie quotes and movie clips.
I've got a few friends that are just like that. I'm more like Grant. I don't have that in my arsenal.
In one ear, out the other.
It's a gift.
We had a few other people that sent in some of the shows that they used to watch. MTV Real World, Road Rules, The Challenge.
Mine was Jersey Shore. I was a Jersey Shore guy. I was a Jersey Shore guy.
Cribs was one.
Cribs.
Room Raiders. Do you remember that?
Was that the dating one where they used to like...
No, that was next.
Oh, okay, that was the one I watched.
Room Raiders was the one where...
where they pick somebody up, and then they'd have the 3 girls in the car, and then they would all go into the guy and walk around his room.
So good.
Pimp My Ride. Used to watch it every single week, because I'm like, man, I want that car.
Dude.
And then I'd get a Ford Tempo when I turned 16. I'm like,
I had a Honda Civic.
Oh, man.
A Civic. I was the classic, right? Like, kid in the suburb, just an idiot.
Yep.
Civic with the big stereo system.
Did you have the big spoiler on the back, too?
No, didn't have that. And I didn't have the big exhaust pipe either.
Yeah.
Like, just the...
I was telling Katie about this last night. We were, oddly enough, we're talking about our first vehicle, because I asked her, I said, did I ever drive you around in my Ford Tempo? And she's like, I don't think so. This car used to shake when you would go above 55. You could take the key out of the ignition, and it would still drive.
Stick or no?
No stick. No.
I was a stick shift
guy. No, I was never stick shift guy, luckily, because I would probably be terrible with that.
At any point?
No, you do not want me driving a stick.
Kids don't grow up with stick shifts anymore. It's harder to find them.
My sister...
It used to be cheaper. Now I think it's even more expensive.
4 years older than me, my sister, she was around that stick shift. I was not in that, because, frankly, I didn't understand it.
Somebody said BK had subs. Sure did. I had subwoofers in the back of my car.
One said Ferrario had watching Jersey Shore was just family research. Yeah, kind of. Gym Tan Laundry, baby, GTL.
All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we'll do Believe It or Not. But next, who's the key player for the Cardinals in the second half of the season? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
Back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Believe it or not, coming up in about 10 minutes here on BK and Ferrario. But Alex, over on MLB.com earlier today, but they put together their list of the key players for each and every team across Major League Baseball for the rest of this season in the second half. For the Cardinals, they went with Nolan Arenado as the key player for the second half of the season. That was John Denton's nominee. First of all, do you agree that Nolan Arenado is the key player for the Cardinals? And if not, who would you go with?
No, it's not Nolan Arenado. To me, that has no impact on this team making the playoffs. I mean, if he goes on a surge, I don't think that overcomes your lack of pitching. But I also don't think even if he goes on some type of tear, he comes into that bat. I mean, for me, the guy that's going to carry you to a playoff spot is either Ivan Herrera for how we've seen that bat impact, or I think you look at Sonny Gray and you say, can you stay healthy and stay consistent from now until the end of the season? Those would be the two guys with, I think I would lean more towards Ivan Herrera. As we've seen, this offense disappears specifically against left-handed pitching if you don't have Herrera in the lineup.
I would go with Herrera as my key as well. That would be my answer to the question, because when he is in the lineup, you look like such a different team, man. Yeah. And now that he is specifically going to be your designated hitter, maybe you see him occasionally in the outfield as well. I think they've got him into the right spot where he's long-term going to be. I don't think he's going to be a catcher for this organization, for better or for worse, whether you agree with that or whatever. I think that's their perspective on it right now. I would have him as my key to the second half of the season. If I was going to go with somebody else, I'll go with Matthew Liberatore.
Yeah. I can see that.
The reason being, I agree with you, Alex. Like, Sonny's hugely important, but you almost have to write that in pen.
Yeah,
Sonny is what he is.
Yeah.
The Cardinals are basically a 500 team when Sonny Gray is not on the mound. Let me put it different. They're a 500 team when Palante, Liberatore, and Michaelis are on the mound.
Yeah, when Fetty's on the mound, it's a loss.
They're well above that whenever Sonny Gray is on the mound, and they're well below that when Eric Fetty is on the mound. They need one of those middle three guys, Palante, Michaelis, or Liberatore, to increase that in the second half if they're going to be the team that we all think that they, or hope that they can become. I think Liberatore is really the only one that has that in his range of outcomes. I don't think Michaelis is going to be more than a 500 pitcher. I don't think Palante is going to be more than a 500 pitcher. I don't think it's fair to expect them to be that. Libby, I think, could. He's been good enough at times to where you've seen that. He had that weird three-start spell, and then he wasn't great going into this all-star break. But in the second half of the season, he's the guy that I would pinpoint on the pitching side of things as the most important player for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one to have second to Ivan Herrera, because you do need somebody to step up to the next level to be that next guy with Sonny Gray, because Sonny Gray can't do it all himself. You're going to have somebody else who can be somewhat of a stopper when they take over in that series. But I thought it was pretty clear Ivan Herrera should be that guy.
All right, on the Arenado conversation side of things, do you think we'll have this is basically the Cardinals version of, are the Blues going to trade Jordan Kyrou? Do you think we're going to have those conversations again as we get closer to the deadline? Like, do you think we'll see a report out there from Morosi, Rosenthal, Passan, whomever, one of the national insiders that says, hey, the Cardinals are canvassing the league to see if there is interest in Nolan Arenado at the deadline?
I think they should. I think those rumors should come up. And, yeah, I think they probably will, because I think there's going to be teams specifically. I think the Yankees are probably the number one team that are going to be looking at third base saying we need to make sure we have an upgrade here. And if you're Arenado, as much as you'd like to stay, your main priority is the playoffs, right? To try and get to that. And if it's an ideal landing spot, and frankly, if I'm the Cardinals, after what we talked about with Keith Law, J.J. Weatherholt should probably be up here by the end of this season. And if that's the case, you want him at second base, you need somebody at third, because I don't think you're moving Nootbaar at this trade deadline, nor do I think you're going to move Nolan Gorman at this deadline. So, yeah, I think somebody is going to put Arenado's name out there by the time we get to the trade deadline. Will he get traded? That's the one that I don't think will happen.
You don't think he will?
I don't think so. I think they revisit it, and I think the offseason could be where you see him get traded. I don't think Arenado is going to accept a trade to the team that would trade for him at the deadline.
I wonder how he feels about the Astros now. They're still really good. Who could have seen this one coming? The Astros, turns out, are still a very good organization despite the moves that they made in the offseason. It's a shock to everybody involved.
They'll regret Kyle Tucker trade.
Isaac Paredes has become a very good player for them. They're going to continue to build around him, and he is primary position a third baseman. He could move around to the diamond, though, if need be. And there was a point in time where, obviously, the Astros were very interested in Nolan Arenado. I wonder if that's a conversation that comes back up again as we get closer to the trade deadline.
Maybe. I think the Yankees are probably going to be the prime suspect of teams that gets connected to Arenado. Because I don't know how many third basemen that are going to be available at this trade deadline, with the exception of, I think, Eugenio Suarez still plays third base. That would probably be the only one, but he's not great defensively considering where the bat is. And if you're the Yankees, you need something that's really good defensively at that position just as much as you need the bat. So I think Yankees are probably going to be the one team that I'm wondering gets tied to them. I could see Houston coming up again, though.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Coming up next, believe it or not, here on BK and Ferrario.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
No T-bone. That means Grant's got it.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
Free.
Flying away on a wing and a prayer.
Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me.
Nailed it.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are believing it or not here on BK and Ferrario. Does Grant have a little bit of like a southern country twang
He's
going
got a
on?
little twang to it.
I kind of like
He's got
that.
some twang to it. He's got that like where he can like vibrata in there.
Yeah, I kinda
I
like
should have
that.
warmed up a little bit. It wasn't my best.
Hey.
No, I would say scale of 1 to 10. That was like a solid 8.5.
I was going to go 9.
I mean, that was good.
That was
take
impressive.
I liked that a lot.
Watch out, ladies and gentlemen. Grant Francis with a country twang solo album coming to a store near you.
Do you think that's a Christmas album? Is that more
No,
of
I
a
don't-
like summer hits?
I don't do Christmas music.
Grant's not a Christmas guy. That's a T-bone thing. Grant's
Okay.
more of like a, I'd say like spring, like coming out of the winter, that warmer weather type of feel. That's what I felt like.
All right, Alex, let's start out with this. Believe it or not, the teams that are currently in the playoff mix will be the teams that make the playoffs in the National League. So the divisional leaders right now are the Phillies, the Cubs, and the Dodgers. And as of today, the wild card representatives in the National League would be the Brewers, the Mets, and the Padres. Believe it or not, those are the 6 teams that represent the National League in the playoffs this year.
Believe it. I think those are the teams that are getting in. And I think San Francisco is still a sneaky team that could get in if San Diego falters down the stretch. But my gut tells me San Diego's spending at the trade deadline, the Mets are buying at the deadline, and I wonder if the Brewers do something at the deadline. And I just don't think the Cardinals can make a move that would match what those 3 do. So I'll say believe it. I think those are the 6 teams that are playoff teams at the start of the playoffs.
Yeah, I would probably believe that as well. Like you said, Alex, I could see San Francisco getting in. I can't see any other team getting in, but I would think San Diego would probably hold on, so I'd say believe it as well.
I'm going to believe it as well. I hate it, but I'm going to say believe it. These teams are a little better. They appear to be a little better than the Cardinals. Could the Cardinals get in? Absolutely. And it's why I, as of today, would still not trade Ryan Helsley. But yeah, I think those are the 3 best teams currently in the National League playoff mix. I thought the Brewers would be the team that I would sub out for the Cardinals as of, 10 days ago.
Nope.
And the Brewers just keep winning. They will not stop winning. All right, Alex, what do you have for us?
Yeah, they won't stop winning because they have 3 studs now at the front of their rotation rather than just 1. Fellas, believe it or not, why am I blanking on what I just thought of?
Grant, what do you
want me
got
to
for
go?
us
Yeah,
today?
please go. 'Cause I'm just blanking on it.
Mine's simple. Believe it or not, the Blues hit 100 points on the season this year.
Wow, why are you so quick to say that?
They were
I
only
don't think
4
they're gonna
points
be
off.
a 100-point team.
I'm believing
I
this
think they
one.
have a lot more up and down nature to their game this year because of some of the young guys that are going to be added in prominent roles from a year ago.
I think they're around like 102 points.
Wow.
So I think they're like just past the 100-point threshold, but I do think they get there, so I'll say believe
BK,
it.
do you think the team got better this offseason?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think they have a higher upside than they did last year.
Okay.
I think they also have a lower floor than they did a year ago.
So, taking into account that Jim Montgomery did not have a full season last year, why do you not think they could get 4 points better?
He's got follow-ups ready to go.
And I'm happy to answer them because I think last year you relied on a very significant winning streak in order to get you to where you needed to be. And I don't think that's something you can expect year to year. It was a franchise record winning streak. Like, it's a lot of stuff
That's
going
fair.
on there. So I think you will see more ebbs and flows to their game this season. And that's not a bad thing. They're a very young team. They've got a lot of talent. I think this is going to be a very good core. And they have a chance to be a 100-point season. Like, I am not writing that off at all. But I also think that sometimes we overlook what the downside could be to this season. And it could be, hey, Snuggie comes in and maybe he's not immediately ready to go for 82 games. It's going to be more of a grind. He goes through in like January, February, maybe he hits a dry spell for a while. And as a top line player, that's going to be a lot for them to overcome. Maybe Logan Mailloux is not as good defensively as we're currently hoping that he becomes. And he's a liability out there at times. So if these things happen, I think that could set them back in a couple of different games.
I remember what mine is now. Believe it or not, the Blues add another winger to their team this offseason.
No. I think they're set.
I do too.
Grant brought up the one, though, that just came up, this Igor Chinikov from the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Definitely familiar
He's
with this
requesting
game and
a
can tell you everything
trade.
about him right now.
He's requesting a trade, so you should look into it.
Igor
Chinikov.
Chinikov.
Chinikov. 6'1", 200-pound winger.
I was gonna say.
16 goals a couple of years ago or 2 years ago with Columbus.
Igor with a Y.
Yeah, Igor.
That's what I was saying.
It's probably a silent Y, like Igor.
Yeah.
But I brought up the Swedish kid from
24
Vegas.
years old.
I like Chinnikov.
Third line player. Now the problem is, like, Columbus' GM basically said, I'm not just trading him away. He'll be here if we don't find the right trade.
Why didn't he play last year?
Because he got hurt, and then when he came back, the coach wasn't happy with his play, and so they put him on the fourth line and didn't pan out to be what it was.
I remember a couple of years ago when the Blues were struggling against Columbus that year, and watching Columbus play, the two players that really impressed me were Voronkov and Chinnikov.
Yeah, they had those three Russian kids, and it was like a Russian line that was just dominant. So I still I'm going to say believe this one. I wonder if they find a way to make a move for another winger on the third line. That's just a piece that's like, hey, look, upside here it's kind of like Texier last year. Upside could turn into something really great. Downside, he's a one-year player, and he's gone after this year.
Yeah. The reason that I don't think they will, and I personally probably wouldn't, is because I think you already have enough options for that spot. Like right now, you could go into the season, and theoretically speaking, Bukestad could be a third-line winger for you, with Sonny as your fourth-line center. You could have Texier there. You could have Joseph there. You could have Dvorsky there. These are all options on the table. Hell, you could have Braden Shin as a winger on that third line. It could be where Suter makes such a mark, and they're like, wow, this guy's too good to not have as their second-line center. Put him there. Bukestad is the third-line center potentially. Shin goes over to the wing, and now you're looking pretty good. You're big down the middle as well. So I just think they have enough options, and I wouldn't want to plug that guy into that spot where I'm guaranteeing, all right, I am locked in. This is my third-line winger because I gave up an asset or assets to be able to get him. I'd rather kind of play this game, see what it looks like, and then if you need something as you get closer to the deadline, maybe that's when you make that move.
Well, and to your point, someone brought up on the text line, why would you want to block Dvorsky? And I do think if I had to choose, I would rather see Dalibor Dvorsky playing on the wing and getting sort of the Robert Thomas treatment in his first year than see Chinnikov.
That's kind of why I don't know if they do it via trade, but I brought up that kid Olofsson that played for Vegas last year. I have a sneaky suspicion that somebody's going to get a PTO, and they're going to try and put a challenge in front of Dvorsky to say, you want the spot, you better outplay all, because Texier and Joseph aren't pieces that he should have any struggles with outperforming. But if you bring in a guy who has scored 20 goals at the NHL level, you're not just going to say this is yours for the taking. It's going to be, you better outplay this guy.
And they do typically do those PTOs. Like you had James Neal, Mike Hoffman. Wasn't Tyler Pitlick one as well? Like they do like to do those.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. We'll get to a few of these before we get to some of your texts and mic drops coming up on the other side. We talked earlier today about the Cardinals situation. This is big picture. It's trickling down also into where they're at right now. We talked about the cap and how having a cap in Major League Baseball could actually be really beneficial for the Cardinals to sell things to their fans. Do you think that is something that's been a problem for them in the past, is not having a cap and what that means for how fans view the organization? We'll get into that, how that trickles down into their decisions at the deadline, all of that. Hear from some of you as well. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app as well. But first, let's get to a few of these really quickly from the text line. From the 636, guys, believe it or not, if Logan Mailloux does not make the top four by the end of the season, then the Blues did not get 5% better. In other words, Logan Mailloux has to be a top four player for the Blues to be a better team this year.
I'm going to say not believe that. I still think you're a better team because your offense is going to be better with or without Mailloux. And I don't think Mailloux is going to be a liability. You don't need him to be a top four defenseman. You need him to be a top four defenseman the following year.
I will say I would like to see him become a top four defenseman because that probably means that Justin Falk is sliding it down into that third pairing, which I would prefer. Yeah. But the thing about that is, I mean, you go back to the beginning of the season last year when Philip Broberg was healthy and Justin Falk was healthy and they were playing together. They were a really good pairing for a good chunk of the season last year. So if Broberg and Falk can get back to where they were at the beginning of the season last year and are really solid as a pairing, I wouldn't mess with that second pairing.
Yeah, I'd say not. I don't think that has to be the case for you to be 5% better. Believe it or not, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. Blues will have multiple 100-point scorers this season.
What?
Yeah, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, no, not believe it. They haven't had one since Brendan Shanahan. You think they're just all of a sudden going to have two guys that do it?
I think Thomas could get there.
I think Thomas is the one guy that could do it.
Believe it or not, the Cardinals will trade Ryan Helsley, and when they do, they will also trade Sonny Gray. I'll say not.
I don't think Sonny Gray's going.
Believe it or not, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, believe it or not, Chaim Bloom will facilitate at least one trade in the offseason that fans will consider shocking or completely unexpected. I don't know what could surprise fans at this point.
What I was going to say, I don't think there's anything that's shocking because I could see him trade Newbar, I could see him trade Gorman. I think shocking would be Donovan or Mason Wynn.
Wynn would be the shocking one. I think Donovan has been discussed enough at this point, and given where he's at age-wise, where he's at contractually, I don't think it should shock anybody if they trade Donovan this offseason.
Yeah. Would it shock you if they were able to move Arenado?
No, it just comes down to him. I mean, they tried last year.
I guess that's true.
Mo
they had
accepted, it sounds like a deal, and it was up to Arenado. He said no. So, no, I don't think that would surprise me at all.
Take out the word shocking and replace it with just big trade, like a move-the-needle trade.
That I would say believe it.
Yeah, I would say believe it.
I think he's going to make some kind of a move this offseason that filters through some of what your roster is right now. And I absolutely believe that will happen. But the shocking element of it, I don't think they're trading Mason Wynn. That would shock me. So I don't think he's going to make a shocking move. Right. All right, coming up next, let's revisit our conversation from earlier today. We want to hear from you. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. More importantly, though, we've got a mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. Earlier today, we talked about how a cap could be a net positive for the way that the Cardinals are viewed. Is that the biggest difference between how the Cardinals are viewed and the Blues are viewed is, hey, one of these teams just has a cap to work with? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Earlier today, the Cardinals signed their number 5 overall pick in this past year's draft, the left-handed pitcher Liam Doyle, to a team record $7.25 million bonus. And speaking of the Cardinals, they'll be back in action tomorrow at 8:40. That'll be the first pitch as they start their 3-game set in Arizona. I'm Grant Francis. This SportsCenter update's been driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Guys, to me, it's simple about what the Cardinals are right now. They've gotten brainwashed into thinking what worked 15 to 20 years ago with your 06 and 11 titles, that you just get absolutely lucky in the playoffs with the low 80s win team, can do it. It's 2025. It cannot do it. We've seen them have success trade for players, and it just hasn't worked out. With Goldschmidt and Arenado, it worked right away with Goldschmidt. You got to an NLCS the next year. Arenado, you got guys that really aren't true leaders, and you got guys that never experienced winning with their prior organizations. It's not saying you went after the wrong guys, but they weren't that. 2025, you have assets in your minor league system that you can trade that aren't going to have options here at the big league level. They've become gun shy, of course, but it's not a reason to operate the way that they do. And it's their fault with the way they've constructed things to where your money's not where you want it to be because of the lack of people that are showing up to games and everything else. You're not going to get the 3 million mark again. It's their fault. Like, no one's going to feel sorry for this organization the way that they've operated. They need to change their ways. You pray that Chaim Bloom can bring that because he's shown to be that kind of, manager of a franchise before at 2 different places. And as long as the DeWitts are owning this, maybe they realize that they need to change their ways also. But again, the Cardinals are trapped into what they think they were 15 to 20 years ago, and they need to be a new version of it now.
That was Nick on the Mic Drop feature on the 101 ESPN app, talking about what's gone wrong for the Cardinals and where they stand today. Alex, earlier today, we had a pretty wide-ranging conversation in the 11 o'clock hour. If people missed it, check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That is all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
We talked about, where the Cardinals are at, their North Star for this season, and whether or not that's changed. Joe Buck mentioned earlier today on TMA, hey, this team can't win a championship as currently constructed. This is not a World Series contending roster, and therefore he would trade Ryan Helsley. And then we talked about, okay, well, things have changed, obviously, for the Cardinals and where they're at this season. What does that mean? And how does the construct of the league, just the salary cap, the lack of a salary cap system, how does that play into all of the conversations that we're having around the Cardinals right now? And I think it does play a pretty sizable, it has a pretty sizable effect on the way that we view things. We've spent so much time, Alex, about the Blues versus the Cardinals and how the Blues are better at messaging and all of these different things. And there's truth in all of that, right? It's not just any one individual thing. Blues are aggressive. Doug Armstrong gives out the offer sheets, all of these different things. He waives a player like Nick Leddy. He waives a player like Brandon Saad and then outright releases him afterwards. Like, they're willing to do things that the Cardinals organization just flat out isn't or hasn't been willing to do. And also part of that is because he's in a cap world. Mm-hmm. And so there are things within the framework of the CBA that he's allowed to do that the Cardinals aren't. And he knows every year, like, based upon not his boss so much, but as the NHL, the way that they're constructed, this is the amount of money that I have to spend on any given season. The Cardinals don't operate that way because there is no salary cap structure in place. It is all based upon what they have internally and their internal projections and all of these different things. So I think baseball is at a really interesting point right now. The game itself is in such a good place. You're seeing that reflected by the ratings. You're seeing that reflected by the stars that we saw on display this week at the All-Star game. The game itself is healthy. The salary structure is in a horrible place. Mm-hmm. The gap between the haves and the have-nots has never been wider, and it is absolutely something, in my opinion, that influences the way that the St. Louis Cardinals here in St. Louis are viewed, given what they were in 2005 and what they are in 2025.
Yeah, and it's something that we're going to continue to have discussions about until, if baseball even does a salary cap. But I think we all kind of understand what's in front of us in terms of a strikeout move or a lockout moving forward for Major League Baseball. It's one of these things that you you look at and you say, yes, the salary cap would benefit the team because you have a little bit more of a threshold to work with, but you also look at it and say, what's just gone wrong over the last however many years with the Cardinals to where you're stuck in a weird spot to where you're trying to be competitive, you're trying to just get in, and you've got the players that are there. You're making aggressive moves to go get guys like Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, and then all of a sudden it turns into, well, we need to get back to what we used to do. Where for the longest time, you've struggled with doing what you're saying you got to get back to what you used to do in terms of keeping up with the times and keeping the minor league system in a good spot. I think it came down to, yes, the salary cap, but there have just been so many mixed messages from the people at the top. And I'm not saying it's all on John Mozeliak, because sometimes John Mozeliak's message is coming from his boss. Of course. But there have been a lot of mixed messages from the people in charge to where the fans have felt like, okay, well, you're just not being honest with me.
Is most of that money related? When you think about
money
that,
related slash player development related. I think I think the player development side has been something that they just haven't been very upfront and honest with.
I think they've been bad at it. I don't think that. What do you mean when you say
stuck with guys that it's pretty obvious you should have moved on from a lot sooner?
I took player development as you meant like the minor league system.
No. I mean like individual players. I mean like I always go back to what Al Avila told us, that it's like, look, if you don't know your own players, you're not doing your job well. Sure. I think that falls because look. The other credit we give to Doug Armstrong and his staff is that they're finding ways to develop guys and find players low in the drafts and make them competitive pieces to the roster. So, yes, the salary cap wouldn't make a difference, but you do also look at the front office as a whole in terms of evaluating and looking at players in terms of you don't do it fast enough or you wait too long to do it, and then that guy burns out and you don't pounce when you're supposed to.
Absolutely. I'm in 100% agreement with you there. And I think a lot of that goes back to the Randy Arozarena trade. They got burned on that. They got burned on the trade for Marcell Ozuna, where they sent out talent the other way. And they were like, all right, we got to find out what we have internally and see them at the major league level and exhaust all paths before we start trading these guys so we don't make another one of those big mistakes again in the future. I think all of that's true. But I think the biggest things, my opinion, that I have seen a blowback from fans on is, hey, you say payroll's going up, and then it's a technicality. Like, the deferred payment, you have to put that money for Adam Wainwright into a specific bank account. So you're counting that today, even though it's a deferred payment for later on down the road. Like, that stuff to me is what really has rubbed Cardinals fans the wrong way. And you add on top of that some of these other things, and it's like, all right, yes, the messaging has been quite bad. You go back to all the way like the Contreras first month and a half of him being a catcher, signed to be a catcher, and boom, now he's like an outfielder DH type. What's going on here? So yes, there has been messaging issues. I think many of the things, though, that Cardinals fans get frustrated about would be alleviated. Not all of them. Many of them would be alleviated by a cap, and I think it helps with the messaging. Because now you can say, are you a cap team, yes or no? The Blues are just able to answer that question by saying yes. Yeah. Like, we plan to spend up to the cap. The Cardinals could then say, are you going to spend up to the cap, yes or no? And it takes that, it prevents them from sticking their foot in their mouth.
Right.
Which is what they have done at times in the past. So I think baseball's probably going to have a lockout. I think that's going to be terrible for the game. I wish they could get this done easier than what part of the reason is going to be the case.
Part of the reason why I wonder if people want this to go faster, where ownership's looking at this as like, hey man, we're going to be out of money in a couple of years because there's going to be a lockout. So why make the effort now when things are the dynamic of baseball is going to be drastically different in 2 years. So let's wait until the dust settles there.
Yeah, it could be. Could be something along those lines for sure. All right, he's Alex. That's Grant. I'm BK. Coming up next, we do want to revisit some of the comments from earlier today. Heard from Joe Buck on with TMA, also Keith Law on with us earlier today. Two very interesting comments from both of them. We'll react to them coming up on the other side of the Rewind here on BK and Ferrario.
it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Alongside Alex and Grant on BK. It's been a fun show today. If you missed any of it, check it out on the podcast page. The 101 ESPN app is one place where you can go to find that. It is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Alex, earlier today, let's start out with this. Joe Buck was on with TMA, and he discussed with them the Cardinals and where they're at right now, and he believes they should probably trade Ryan Helsley at this year's deadline. He said, hey, this is not a championship contending team. They're not going to win the World Series, so you should get whatever you can for Ryan Helsley. And anything that's not, is completely nailed to the ground, guys that are not going to be here in 2 years, explore what you could get for them as well. Is that your perspective on where the Cardinals are at as we're now about 24 hours away from the Cardinals beginning their second half of the season?
Yeah, and I think the key word, what you said, is explore. I'm not in the camp of definitively right now trade Ryan Helsley because I think the return is very important. I'm not about quantity for Ryan Helsley. If I'm getting the 7th and 10th best prospect from a team, then I'll keep Ryan Helsley and I'll try for a playoff spot because I do think there's value in the playoffs. But if I can call every team in Major League Baseball that's buyers and say, give me your best offer. I want your best player. And if I could get somebody's second or third best prospect for Ryan Helsley, I don't know if I really care where I'm at in terms of the playoff race. I think I'm pulling the trigger on that because the goal right now is to continue to amplify what you're already building in a pipeline that seems like it's got a couple of stars/superstars. If I can go out there and find myself one more, specifically that right-handed bat to play an outfield position, I think I'm going to consider it with Ryan Helsley.
I think this is one of the most difficult decisions that Mo has had to make in his entire tenure as the Cardinals president of baseball operations.
I'd agree.
It might be the last significant decision that he makes.
And then he just mic drops it out.
It's crazy, right? For this to be the year that you came in and you're like, you know what? We're taking a step back. And then in your final season as the president of baseball operations, your team's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Not great, but it's been pretty good, and you're still very much in the mix. If they are still, right around where they're at today, which is a game and a half back of the wild card, I genuinely do not know what they will do. I don't know. And typically we have a pretty good feel on the direction that Mo's going to go at any given time and the kinds of moves that he's likely to make. Yeah. I don't know on this one. What I would do, I would probably hold. Unless I get a Godfather offer where, how could I possibly say no to that?
Yeah.
I think that's what would have to come in return for me. But otherwise, given where they're at right now, I would probably hold. I understand the other perspective on this one, though. This is not a all or nothing approach.
It's why I just don't buy the people that say Chaim Bloom doesn't have any impact on the trade deadline. I think he's going to have some type of impact on it, especially if they're in the camp of let's see what we can get for Helsley and somebody's offering players up. You've got to pull him into the room and say, what do you think?
I agree. I think Mo makes the decision. I think you ask him what he thinks, and ultimately I think John Mozeliak is going to make that decision. I think it's probably pretty similar to Steen's involved in some of these conversations, don't get me wrong. It's Army's move.
Yeah.
Still Army's team. And until that changes, until officially Steen has that role, it is still Army's team and Army's organization. All right, last thing here. Earlier today, we heard the word, Alex. We heard somebody say the word about a player that the Cardinals have in their organization that everybody's been waiting to hear. Here's Keith Law saying something you're going to like, Cardinals fans.
Can't say enough good things about J.J. Weatherholt. He's a superstar. I just saw him again on Saturday at the Futures game. He's going to hit. He's absolutely going to hit. He's going to come up. He should come up this year. He's going to be ready. You'll figure out where to play him. I'm not even worried about that. You got to move him to second base. Fine. I don't care. Just, he needs to be in the batter's box.
He said he's for people that like wins above replacement, a 5-win player, guy that could hit 300, 15-ish, 20 maybe home runs in any given season. Just a guy that you consistently feel like is a star across the league and has really significant upside as a hitter. Alex, you heard that and immediately smiled. What was your reaction when you heard that from Keith Law?
I mean, that the Cardinals might be pushing themselves out of this frustrating era into something that they can start to get back to competitiveness. I mean, Liam Doyle has already been labeled by Keith Law and others as a top-end pitcher in a rotation, if not a number 2 and number 1. You just heard him say J.J. Weatherholt is a superstar, and it's a different type of superstar. It's not the power bat, but it's just a guy that you're going to look at every single game and know what to expect. It's the start of it. I'm not saying it's the end result. I'm not saying now you've got a roster that can compete. But hearing the label superstar next to a guy like J.J. Weatherholt it does tell you that, hey, all of this was not for naught. All of this was, now you're starting to build something and put together a roster that you can get excited about.
He's Alex. That's Grant. I'm BK. If you guys missed any of the show, again, the podcast page is available for you later on today. That Keith Law interview will be up there. It's also available for you on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Tomorrow, we will be joined by Randy Flores, Cardinals assistant general manager, the director of scouting. He's the guy that's basically overseeing the draft for the Cardinals. We will talk to the man in charge of the draft tomorrow at 11:30. We'll also be joined by Jeff Ponce because we want even more breakdown of the Cardinals prospects. He's from Baseball America. Brad Thompson will join us as he does each and every week, as will Mike McKinnis. So plenty of interviews, plenty of conversations to be had tomorrow here on the show. We will talk to you guys then. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.